Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the D and WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku was a year older. All credits for this video go to their respective authors. So please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. When Izuku was 4, his life was pretty okay. He didn't have a dad as far as he knew, but he didn't think that was terrible. After all, he only needed his mother. But all good things come to an end. I'm sorry, Miss Midoriya, but your son is quirkless. That's when it all came crashing down. Are you sure, doctor? I mean, there isn't anything. Inko asked as she used her own quirk to pull the figurine towards herself. I'm afraid so. With how weak your quirk and your husband's quirk is, it makes sense even though only 20% of people are quirkless. Inko nodded her head and said her goodbyes, leaving the doctor's office with her son in tow. Mommy. Inko looked to her son quickly in the car to let him know she was listening. Do you think I can still be a hero? Her eyes widened and she pulled the car into a lot and set it in park. Honey, she thought about it for a moment before answering. I think you can still be a hero. She saw her son perk up before speaking again, but not like All Might. He almost started crying, but she picked him up from his seat and hugged him. You're going to be better. After their talk, Inko decided that if she was going to support her son, then he needed to take lessons on how to fight and defend himself, especially from bullies now that everyone seemed to know. Izuku, do you want to start taking classes? Inko asked as she made dinner while he set the table. Like what? Oh, will it help me be a hero? He asked excitedly. It would. He nodded his head vigorously and she smiled. She wanted to start off with something that would be good for running away and hiding from people first, so at the age of 4 he started gymnastics and parkour. She was proud that her son didn't seem to mind that he wasn't getting into fighting right away though. It was all going fine until he came home one day with a long nasty cut on his arm. She had asked him who did it, but he didn't tell her and only looked down sadly at himself. Honey, did this happen while you were trying to practice? She saw her son straighten up and begin to talk quickly. No, it was this other kid. I had been trying to run away like you said and was halfway up a tree when they grabbed onto my arm with their quirk and it cut me. But the teacher said it was an accident, so I didn't want to get the other in trouble. He explained, whispering at the end. She smiled sadly at her son. He was being a hero even to people who didn't deserve it. It's okay, honey. I'm gonna show you how to fix this up, okay? After all, a hero needs to know first aid. She declared, carrying him to the bathroom. She was glad that she was a nurse, so it was a simple few stitches and clean up. At the age of 6, Inko decided it was time for him to begin other activities. The bullying hadn't stopped and her son was already getting in trouble all of the time since they blamed him for it. So she decided it was time he learned to fight back. I think you should start some other classes. What do you think? Inko asked as she helped bandage another wound. Really? Can I choose? How many am I allowed to do? Inko smiled as he talked excitedly about all the things he could learn. At the age of 6, he was in gymnastics, aikido, hapkido, judo, jiu-jitsu, and a parkour class. She thought it was too much for him since he was so young, but he was so excited and had handled everything well enough that she decided that it was okay for him to take so many classes. Since he started not being at home so much, Inko also decided to start taking more shifts. Money wasn't the issue, of course. They had enough to be fine for a while. She loved Izuku a lot, but nursing was always her passion. Izuku, honey, I'm not going to be home so much anymore and I'll be getting back a lot later. Is that okay? She asked as she walked him to his school. It's okay, mommy. My teachers offer me rides all the time. Inko was glad that he had such amazing teachers. She had known Haku and Sakura for 2 years now and was glad that they also offered the fighting classes to teach him. The only new teacher he seemed to get was a man named Akabane, who was a very calm old man who had a fighting quirk that allowed him to see all the openings in a fight. Okay, honey, as long as you're sure. It was Saturday, or as Izuku called it, free day. He had classes every day of the week except Saturday. His teachers thought it was because he wanted to play on those days, but it was actually because it gave him time to try out his own fighting style that he was making with all of the classes he took. He quickly learned that every fighter has a beat, like music, that they all followed, and if you were able to mess up the beat or keep yours unpredictable, then it would make the fight easier. He also used these days to learn anything else that could help him. He had been learning how technology and devices worked to learn hacking, support building, and how to destroy any weapon he came across or find its weakness. He had also picked up sewing. He didn't know why, but he found it fun and comforting. After all, sewing was just like stitches, so he used it as an excuse even though he knew his mother didn't mind it. He was of course still interested in heroes, but he didn't have any All Might stuff yet. He didn't see the point in liking him if he couldn't actually help the kid. He also realized that, being quirkless, All Might didn't support quirkless people and often seemed to look down on them. So Izuku ended up liking a different hero. He was kind of new and had only graduated recently, but was an amazing underground hero as well as fought quirkless countless times. No one knows what his quirk is, but from the videos I've seen it has something to do with his eyes. He spoke aloud while taking apart an old computer from the junkyard, and all of the attackers seem to lose control of their quirks unless it's a mutant type. He finally got the back part open and began messing with the motherboard, so maybe he can wait, that's it. He yelled, running over and grabbing one of his notebooks before writing quickly. He can erase people's quirks as long as he can see them. That's why his hair floats. He's using his quirk. He wrote down any other things he could think of about the hero, including how his capture weapon assisted with keeping villains in his line of sight. Denko got home around midnight, but she was surprised to see her son still awake and working on a computer while writing in his notebook. She expected to see or hear him mumbling, but he was silent and had his lips pressed together as if forcing himself not to talk. It wasn't the first time she had noticed it either. When she had the first time, she thought maybe he was just having an off day, but this proved he wasn't. Izuku, I'm surprised you aren't mumbling. She laughed a little nervously. She was worried that her son was still being bullied. Oh, sorry, I just must have been really focused. She could tell he was lying. He had a habit of putting his hand on his neck when he lied to her. She couldn't figure out why he always did that though. She only nodded her head but didn't seem convinced. Izuku, honey, are you being bullied again? Izuku jumped so much that he accidentally cut himself on the piece of the computer, but he quickly wrapped it and looked at her nervously. Why would you say that, Mom? Everyone pretty much leaves me alone, but it's fine, really. He was always a very convincing 7-year-old, even though he had a few tells. Okay, Izuku, whatever you say. Izuku was now 12 and always seemed to have a lot on his plate. His mom always seemed to worry about him, but with all of her shifts and his lessons, they didn't talk about it much. He had learned and was proficient in all of the classes he took, but he knew he could always do better. After all, he was useless according to his classmate. He knew that he couldn't take what they said seriously and to just ignore it, but he couldn't sometimes. He was heading to his class and was practicing his parkour at the moment since the streets were pretty empty. The two teaching him turned out to be married and combined the classes since they knew what he was trying to do. They had asked him if he could come in early so that he could meet their son and his friends. He didn't get why they wanted to meet him, but he didn't mind it. He was jogging slightly and humming under his breath to his music. He didn't notice the group of kids behind him either as he picked up the pace a little before jumping over a trash can, landing on a bench before flipping off it and landing in a crouch. The group of kids began clapping and cheering. He jumped a little before looking at the group. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to bother you guys, he replied automatically when they began walking up to him. Are you kidding? That was awesome. The one with straight black hair and sharp teeth shouted with stars in his eyes. Sorry, I'm really bad with people, he answered, still a little nervous. No worries, man, neither is our buddy Kirishima here, the pink girl with horns assured as she laid an arm over the black-haired one. Yeah, he gets all shy, the blonde with the lightning bolt teased as he nudged the black-haired one, making him blush a little, and nudged his friend back. Wait, I've seen you somewhere before, one with large elbows said, looking at him as he still hadn't stood up straight yet. Once he did, they all jumped back a little since they didn't expect him to be taller than they are. Whoa, dude, how much older are you? Kirishima asked. I'm only 12, he responded with a slight blush on his cheeks. Oh no, we didn't mean it like that. It's just you're our senpai then, the blonde answered while waving his hands. We never even introduced ourselves. My name's Ashido Mina. This is Kaminari Denki, Shiro Hanta, and Kirishima Ijiro. Ashido greeted, pointing to all of them. Oh, my name is Midoriya Izuku. I should probably go, actually. I need to meet up with my teachers. He gestured widely behind him. Oh right, didn't mean to keep you, Midoriya-senpai. Have a good day, they shouted to him as he began running again. He blushed slightly at the name but waved goodbye. Midoriya, it's good to see ya, Haku yelled as she saw him enter. What's wrong, honey, you look flustered, Sakura said as they both walked up to the boy who was panting. There were these kids, and Thathy said I was cool, then started calling me senpai. He yelled the last part like he was describing a car accident. Oh Midoriya, honey, they just thought you were cool is all, don't worry. And we warned the kids to calm down a little around you too, Sakura said, trying to calm down the boy at least a little. Yeah, don't worry about it, Ijiro will love you. Izuku looked up shocked. Kirishima, Ijiro. The two nodded their head confused. That was one of the kid that I. Hi moms. Oh Midoriya-senpai. I didn't know my moms were your teachers. The group of four ran up to the three, making the two adults smirk. Ijiro, you didn't tell us you knew little Midoriya here, Sakura said, still smirking at Izuku. Oh, we met on our way here actually. He was awesome. Ijiro went on a tangent on what Izuku was doing as the older blushed and tried to hide his face in his hands. Okay, that's enough. Haku giggled out as she led Izuku to the training area. He still needs to work if he's gonna be here. Izuku nodded his head, going to change into spandex shorts, a tank top, and some knee and elbow pads before coming back out and stretching to loosen up a little. He looked over and saw the four others messing around a little. He smiled slightly. He wished he had something like that, but he was happy that none of them were alone. Okay Midoriya, since it is one of your off days, how about just doing some of your normal runs and then whatever you want? Haku already began to do her own routine. Sounds good, Haku-sensei. The woman nodded her head and went back to work, and Izuku started a run. Hey you four, you might want to watch this, Haku yelled to the other kids. They all looked over and watched as Izuku jumped over a few foam boxes before jumping from the tallest one. He reached up and grabbed the edge of a cement wall and pulled himself up. Wow, that's so cool, Mina cheered. Izuku blushed but kept focus on the task at hand. He ran across the edges and climbed up higher every once in a while until he got to a part where it was only railing. He balanced on a part for a moment and took a few breaths before crouching, then jumping off and landing in a roll. Wow, holy crap. He blushed a little more before standing up and catching a water that was thrown to him. Good job, Midoriya. Go get some water, then we'll go from there. To say Izuku was exhausted would be lying. He was dying honestly. Going from only talking to his teachers, mother, and the Bakugas to talking to 4 new people that were all very excitable was different. When he walked into the house, he saw his mother sitting on the couch watching TV. He walked over there before flopping on her lap with a sigh. Hi honey, how was today? She asked through laughs. It's not funny. They were so talkative and nice. He said like he was complaining. Isn't that good though? A change from everything. I mean yeah, but it was just a lot. They were really nice though. He smiled up at her. She pet his hair. As she did so, she realized how much longer his hair had gotten. Oh, do you want a haircut? It has been a while. Izuku sat up and saw his own hair length. It was getting closer to the bottom of his ears. Maybe. I'm not sure. I kinda like it long. She smiled at him and nodded her head. Of course, sweetie. Now let's go ahead and make dinner. Honey, get up, I'll be leaving soon. Inko called from the kitchen as she got dressed. I know, Mom. Izuku shouted while he jumped from the stairs and landed in the living room. He had on shorts and a tank top again since he was supposed to go on a run. You look amazing, honey. She turned him around, seeing his hair in a small ponytail now. Here's any money you might need. Get groceries on the way back. And make sure to stay hydrated. She kissed him on the cheek, making him laugh a little. I know, Mom. I know. Have a good day. Make sure you tell Grandma Chio I said hello. She was a woman that had started volunteering at his mom's hospital. I love you. Love you too. She went out the door and headed to work while Izuku got around to go for his run. He grabbed his phone, headphones, and a water bottle before he headed out the door with his keys. After his run, he decided to go to the beach. He had been working on cleaning up the beach for a while so he could build up muscle outside of lessons. Once he got to the beach, he set his stuff down and began humming slightly as he picked up garbage. He was so busy cleaning and hopping over all the obstacles that he didn't notice someone watching. Well, actually, that's what the kid thought. Izuku had noticed him as soon as he stopped walking and watched Izuku. Once he cleared a good area, he decided to walk over and get a drink and sit down. The person still hadn't left though. He sat up and turned to them with a smile. You can sit down if you want. I don't bite, promise. He joked, making the person smile at least. The two were silent until Izuku decided to speak again. My name's Izuku Midoriya. The person looked at him and stared before answering. Shinso Itoshi. Izuku nodded before he stood up almost abruptly. Well, I'm gonna do a little more work. You're welcome to join in if you want. He smiled before going back to moving the garbage out of the way. He did notice though that Shinso hadn't moved yet. After another hour, he decided to call it a day and walked back over to Shinso, who still hadn't moved yet. Well, you want to go get some lunch? The other seemed shocked that Izuku was even talking to him. I don't have any money. Izuku smiled brighter. That's fine, I'll treat you. The boy followed him even though he seemed a little nervous about it. Why are you taking a complete stranger to lunch? Shinso asked, not meeting the other's eyes. Why were you watching a complete stranger? Izuku asked with a smirk, being able to catch the other's eyes. But it was because. Izuku thought about it for a moment. It wouldn't be obvious to most people, but since Izuku worked with a lot of small pieces and focused on all the details, he noticed that he was skinnier than he needed to be. He didn't miss the subtle marks around his mouth. I don't really know, seemed fun. The other looked at him confused but shrugged him off. Why did you follow a stranger? Depending on his answer, Izuku was going to offer something. Yao seemed nice enough. Izuku nodded his head. If what he thought was true, he was going to drag someone to his mom later. Most people wouldn't do that. Shinso flinched a little, but then again, most people don't offer lunch to a complete stranger. Once they made it to the downtown area, Izuku watched for Shinso to look at a place. He wasn't really surprised when the other's eyes settled on a cat cafe for a minute. Let's go there. Izuku made it seem like he came up with the idea, though he could see the subtle signs of happiness on the other's face. They were both silent for the most part, but neither seemed to mind it, until Izuku got curious. So, what's your quirk? He saw the other try to suppress the violent flinch at the question. The other started to avoid eye contact and even shrunk in on himself. I'm quirkless. The other looked surprised. So whatever your answer is, I'm not gonna push you away, but I won't push for an answer either. Shinso seemed to calm down after that but still didn't look up. Brainwashing. Izuku nodded his head. Is it response-based or do you have to do it through contact? Can someone break out or do you have to let them go? Izuku asked a few questions because 1, he was genuinely curious, and 2, to make sure the other knew he wasn't afraid to talk to him still. It's ... response based. And they have to sorta be pushed somehow to be knocked out of it, or feel pain. Izuku nodded and wrote it down on one of the napkins. They had found out he had almost photographic memory, so him writing it down now would make sure he knew later. Huh, that's really cool. You plan on being a hero? Izuku asked. He was generally interested. Yeah, I wanna be like Eraserhead. Izuku had stars in his eyes. Really? Me too. He's so cool, honestly. And his fighting style is actually hard to follow. Izuku kept talking about Eraserhead, with Shinso jumping in and adding his own thoughts. After a while, with the two eating and talking, it was almost time for Izuku to head home. Hey, do you have a phone? Izuku asked, pulling his out. Yeah. He pulled his phone out and handed it to Izuku. Why? Well, to exchange numbers, right? I mean, we're friends after all. Izuku explained with a blinding smile. Oh, huck. Shinso shrugged his shoulder, but Izuku could see the happiness in his eyes. And call or text if you ever need anything. Shinso nodded seriously. Even if it's something you think is silly. Soon the two said goodbye as Izuku pulled out his phone again and called his mom. Hi honey, what's up? I met someone today, but something's wrong with his home life. I'm gonna see if I can help him, and if I can, is it okay if? Of course honey, I would love to have him over. Don't worry about anything. The next night Izuku was woken up by his phone ringing loudly. He woke up a little confused and saw it was Shinso. Shinso, everything okay? It was almost silent, but he could hear crying Shinso. Talk to me, what's happening? He was already getting his shoes and jacket on. I don't know. It's okay. I'm on my way. Can you tell me where you are? Izuku ran out the door and began running, even though he didn't really know where he was going. On 20th Street, the light blue house with a white door and ... and a black car in the driveway. Izuku looked for the street and turned down it. He didn't like how it sounded like he was having trouble speaking either. It was like gritted teeth or ... or a muzzle. He picked up the pace until he saw the house. Shinso, can you get outside? Or near a window? There was some shuffling before a window opened near Izuku. Okay, I see it. Back up a little, okay. The wall of the house was obviously straighter than the one at the gym, but he could manage. He took a few steps back before sprinting forward and used a little of the house to get up. He gripped onto the window edge and pulled himself up before silently entering the room. Once he was in, he felt someone tackle him and hug him. He looked down and moved Shinso a little and saw the muzzle. I'm sorry it took a while to get here. He unclasped the muzzle and set it down before hugging the younger again. Now I need to get you out of here, okay? So grab anything you want. The younger nodded before letting go and grabbing a bag that was under his bed. Izuku felt a little bad that it was only a slightly packed bag he wanted. Okay, now hold on. Izuku picked him up and climbed out the window before falling and going into a roll, but made sure that the younger didn't get hurt. You okay? When he received a nod, he set the other down. Okay, I'm gonna take you to my house. We'll rest, then in the morning deal with this, okay? Shinso nodded but seemed a little sluggish. Okay, up. He then carried Shinso on his back to his house. When Aizawa decided to go out for a patrol, he expected to see a few muggings, robberies, the usual. He, however, didn't expect to see a 14-year-old jump into a window and carry out a 12 to 13-year-old and then carry him on his back. He trailed them for a minute before deciding to drop behind them. He also wasn't expecting the older to notice him and turn towards him with a deadly glare. Why are you carrying a kid on your back? Aizawa asked, with his quirk activated. The teen looked pissed before shocked. You're a Eraserhead. That threw him off a little. Answer the question. The teen stared at him, before looking back to see if the other was still asleep. I met him a few days ago. I told him to call me if anything happened. He had marks around his mouth and looked like he was malnourished. He called me crying and told me where he was. When I got there, he was wearing a muzzle and it looks like he's been hit a few times. Aizawa was shocked. A 14-year-old had just saved a random kid's life because the kid called him. Where are you taking him? The teen seemed to think again. My house. Treat any wounds. Make him food if he's hungry. Let him sleep. Then in the morning go with my mom to work to get him actually treated and talk to the cops. See if he can stay with me and my mom permanently. That shocked him even more. Most people would have left him alone and just have taken him to the cops or hospital to let the system deal with it all. Aizawa stared at him and thought about what he was going to do. Fine, take this. He handed the boy a piece of paper with his number on it. Tomorrow when you go to the doctor's, call me. Got it? The teen seemed shocked. Yeah, sure. Aizawa nodded before leaving the two, though he was actually following to make sure they made it to the house safe. When they got back, the lights were on and Inko had been pacing while looking worried. When Izuku opened the door, she was about to shout but saw the sleeping kid on her son's back. Izuku, what happened? She whispered while looking at the boy. I told him to call me if anything happened. He called me and was crying, so I rushed over. Is it okay if we come with you to work tomorrow? He should get checked out. Inko nodded her head. Do you want to wake him up? See if he's hungry. She started walking to the kitchen. He nodded and slowly set the younger on the couch before shaking him slightly. Shinso. The boy slowly opened his eyes and blinked a couple times. Hey, are you hungry? He looked around for a minute before nodding his head. Okay, I'll get you a sandwich. Any preference? Peanut butter if that's okay. Sure thing. He walked to the kitchen and saw his mom looking for a few supplies to give him a small check over. She walked into the living room and Shinso panicked for a minute, about to run. It's okay, I'm Izuku's mother and a nurse. Do you have any injuries? The boy seemed to just stare at her. Izuku. Her son walked out with some food and gave it to the other. Here, I got it. You can go to bed, Mom. She nodded and went back to her room. Is it okay if I treat your injuries? Why, yeah, Is she nice? Izuku looked up from looking at Shinsu's arms. Yep, she tries to help anyone. She's honestly my hero. He joked as he began cleaning any old and new wounds on him. After Shinso ate and was treated, Izuku went to grab a blanket and pillow. He set the pillow down and sat down next to Shinso, but felt a pressure on his shoulder and saw the younger asleep. Izuku smiled and decided not to move him too much and laid down, letting Shinso use him as a pillow. In the morning, the three went to the car and drove to the hospital. Okay, Izuku, you and Shinso can head to. She pulled out an empty chart. Go to room 15 and I'll be in there with Chiyo, okay? Izuku nodded and led Shinso into the room where they both sat on the bed. Oh, Eraserhead wanted me to call him. Shinsu's eyes widened. You have Eraserhead's number. When did you get that? Shinso asked, looking amazed. The other night. He wanted to make sure you were okay. It looked like the younger was too starstruck as Izuku called the hero. Hello. A tired voice answered the phone. Hi, we met last night. And you told me to call you when we got to the hospital. There was rummaging on the other side of the phone. Okay, I'll be there soon. The man hung up. Izuku looked a little offended at the phone as he walked back over to the other. I don't know how to feel about the fact that my favorite hero just hung up on me. It wasn't long till Chiyo walked into the room and saw the two boys talking. It's good to see you again, dear. Glad you aren't hurt again. She joked. No, Grandma Chiyo, but this is Shinso. He stepped out of the way, showing the woman, Shinso. Nice to meet you, Shinso. My name is Dr. Chiyo, but Izuku and his mother call me Grandma Chiyo. She offered a hand that he slowly shook. Now, any injuries I should know about? Shinso looked to Izuku, who smiled. He's malnourished, though it's not extreme. Some dehydration, bruising on his right side, a few scars on his chest. But other than that, everything is superficial. Chiyo nodded her head. Okay, I'll give you a once-over, then we'll give you an IV and some food. If needed, I'll use my quirk and fix you right up. Shinso nodded his head but held onto Izuku's arm throughout the whole thing. Sorry, let me answer this. Izuku picked up his phone. Hello. Deku, where have you been? I haven't seen your sorry ass for weeks. Izuku laughed as he heard the other scream into the phone. Sorry, Kaken. I've been busy, you know that. I'll make sure to stop by later, okay? You can meet me at the gym later and see how well your fighting's gotten. Izuku teased, knowing it would rill up the other. Oh, it's on Deku. The other hung up as Izuku glared at the phone. Everyone keeps hanging up on me today. That got Shinso to laugh and lighten up a little. Oh, you think that's funny? Izuku asked with a smile. The other started laughing harder. It wasn't long either till his phone went off again. He glared and answered it. Swear to God, if you hang up on me, I will. Sorry, I'll make sure not to do it again. Izuku's face heated up. But I'm here with a friend of mine. What room are you in? Right, sorry. I'll be down there in a second. He hung up this time and turned to Shinso. I'll be back in a minute, okay? If you need anything, hit this button and my mom will come check on you, okay? Shinso nodded as Izuku walked out the door, heading to the entranceway. When he made it there, he saw Eraserhead with another man talking to his mom. Oh, sweetie, just in time. Inko turned and gave her son a hug. I have to go. One of the patients went into shock. We'll be back, okay? Love you. She seemed to run before shouting orders. Sorry about that. Anyway, we're over here. Izuku began to lead them to the room. I'm Detective Naomasa, by the way. I want to help in Shinsu's case. Izuku looked at the man and smiled. That's fantastic. They walked into the room where Shinso was talking to Chiyo. Oh, you're back. Chiyo saw Eraserhead and smiled and brought a friend. I see. I'll leave you to it, dear. She walked out of the room, leaving the four there. Okay, I'm Detective Naomasa. Can you tell me your name, age, and quirk? Shinso grabbed onto Izuku's arm again as he answered. Shinso hit a shit while V&D brainwashing. Izuku felt his hold tighten but didn't react. Okay, can you tell me what growing up was like? Izuku put his hand over Shinsu's, helping him calm down a little. Me parents ... were killed in a villain attack. After that I was tossed around in foster care because of my quirk, and I was in this home for almost a year. Izuku felt Shinso tighten his hold, but just kept smiling. Thathy made me wear a muzzle because of my quirk, and if talked Thathy'd hit me for it ... or wouldn't feed me. Shinso stopped talking after that and it was silent. You know Shinso isn't your favorite hero Eraserhead? Izuku asked with a teasing smile. The younger immediately blushed and punched him in the shoulder. Shut up, he whispered, though Izuku could see the two adults smiling. What? I don't say anything wrong. Shinso punched him again, making Izuku laugh. The hospital visit went smoothly after that, though Izuku did end up having to ask Eraserhead for an autograph for the both of them. We got his autograph, Shinso whispered in amazement as Izuku walked them back home. I know, it's pretty cool, Izuku said with the same amazement, though he was a little more focused on not getting lost. Wait, does this mean I live with you now? Shinso asked, a little confused, though Izuku didn't blame him since Inko had already been working on it. Yep, it also means I get to be your big brother. Izuku nudged him in the shoulder. Shinso blushed a little. I've never really had an older brother, he admitted. Izuku smiled and nudged him again. I've never had a younger brother, so we'll learn this together. Once the two finally made it, they were sitting in the kitchen while Izuku began cooking dinner. So Shinso, have any idea what you want to do when you're older? Izuku asked, turning his body a little so the other knew he was listening. I want to be a hero, underground though. Izuku smiled. Have you done any training yet? The other seemed stumped. No, I never really got the chance to. Izuku smiled and turned the stove off. Well, how about you join me for my training? I go to a gym almost every day to train. Gotta be prepared. Shinso seemed to light up at that. Really? Izuku nodded his head as he handed the other their food. Warning though, it's a little intense and there are sometimes other kids there, and another person usually joins me on weekends. Izuku explained. He didn't want the other to be scared by them. Are they nice? Izuku had to think about it for a second. The kids at the gym are nice, though really loud, and the other, well, he's not mean. Just kind of a brat, but he won't be one if it bothers you. Shinso nodded his head and thought about it. Okay, as long as I can leave if it gets too much. Izuku nodded his head in understanding. The next day when Izuku woke up, he got into his exercise clothes and woke up Shinso. Hey, you wanna come today? Shinso blinked a couple times but nodded his head. Okay, I have some extra clothes that should fit. Izuku grabbed an extra water for when Shinso would need it and some extra money for lunch. Once Shinso came downstairs, there was banging at the door. Hi Kaken, you ready too? Yeah, Deku. Who's the guy joining us? Shinso stepped out from behind Izuku and waved slightly. This is Shinso, play nice. Though Izuku sounded playful, he did send a look telling Bakugo to lay off a little. Whatever, let's go, name's Bakugo. Izuku smiled at the two. Shinso. As they walked, Izuku was happy to see the two getting along without much help from him. When they made it to the gym, Izuku could already tell the others were there today. Midoriya, good to see you back. And you brought some others with you, Haku pointed out, getting the others' attention. Bakugo, the group yelled before tackling him to the ground. Get off me. The group only laughed before getting up and going to Shinso. Hi, my name's Kaminari. This is Shiro, Mina, and Kirishima. Shinso watched them for a moment. Shinso. After that, Shinso got dragged into the group as they all sort of messed around but trained at the same time. Izuku smiled as he practiced more parkour while dodging Haku, who was chasing him. You ready to go, Izuku? Inko asked as Izuku ran down the stairs. Shinso stared at him as he rushed around. Yep, I have everything. I'll see you later. Bye, Mom. Bye, Toshi. He called before running out the door. Don't forget to walk Hitoshi home. Shinso turned to Inko with a small blush and glare. I can walk myself, Mom. Inko chuckled as Shinso squawked. Izuku walked up to the front building and saw everyone walking and looking confident. He shrunk back a little as he walked in and sat down, getting ready to take the written exam. It seemed pretty easy as he went through it. He had finished it halfway through the time and even went back over his answers before he handed in the packet and sat back down. When everyone was in the auditorium and present, Mike began explaining the next part of their exam. He was even more nervous. They would be fighting robots. He might as well call it now, was all he could think as he stood in the back of his group. He looks nervous. One less person to beat. He glared at the ground as he dug his fingernails into his palms. Go. He jolted up and ran past everyone and entered the fake city. He saw a one-pointer right away and slid under it before seeing the wires exposed in the back of its neck and ripped them out. See, that guy's got the idea. There are no countdowns in real life. Go, go, go. He was silently thankful for the head start since he now was at least a point above everyone. He took down another one-pointer and a three-pointer in a similar way when he realized the three-pointer actually had a screen inside. It showed where other robots were at the time. Using that and a piece of pull, he found he was able to rack up 15 more points before it became a little harder to find robots people weren't already after. He was turning a corner when he saw Ruble about to fall on someone not paying attention. He raced forward and tackled the person out of the way. He looked them over quickly. Hey, watch it, asshole. He didn't say anything back though as he stood up and began running again. Kid should be thankful he's not dead right now thanks to that green-haired one. Vlad King pointed out with a grunt. It's true, he saved a few other students in that time and is ranking up not only villain points but rescue points too. Another teacher commented. He hasn't used his quirk either. It might be a mental quirk then. Nedzu smiled as he pulled up the student's file. Midoriya Izuku, Quirkless. That shocked more teachers, but Aizawa recognized the name and face right away. I remember him. He was the one that brought that abuse case to light a few years ago. Aizawa explained with a small proud smile. You like him, don't you? Yamada teased. Aizawa glared at the other before looking back to the screen. No, he just has potential and isn't stupid. Yamada awed, making Aizawa punch him in the stomach. Izuku had just helped another person to only get yelled at again when he felt a rumble. He looked up and saw everyone running from a giant robot. 0-pointer, he thought. He ran to where everyone was running from and saw most of them gone by now except one girl that seemed to be having trouble. Hey, is it just you? The girl shook her head. No, there's another girl back there. He looked from her to one of the alleys she had pointed to. I'll be fine, help her please. Does he have a death wish? Aizawa glared at the screen. No, there's another girl in that alley over there. If he doesn't make it, then him and the girl could be in serious trouble. He explained. Izuku made it into the alley and saw another girl holding her leg. He went over and scooped her up as carefully as possible before dashing out of the alley just as the building next to it was crushed. He was able to make it back to the front gate as time was called. Setting the girl down slowly, he sighed. Sorry, are you okay? She nodded and thanked him before recovery girl came and healed them both since Izuku had a few scraps and bruises. There you go, sweetie. Can't have your mom worry now, can we? Izuku gasped quietly before nodding. Right, thanks Grandma Chio. Once everything was done and over with, he packed his stuff up and was outside the school when someone grabbed onto him. Hey, he was slammed up against a wall and grunted as someone got in his face. You made me look weak. Izuku was a little confused until he realized that it was the first kid he saved. If I didn't push you out of the way, then Izuku was cut off as the guy punched him in the face. Shut up. If I don't get in the hero course because of you, you're dead. He slammed Izuku against the wall again before walking away and out of the alley. Izuku slowly sank to the ground and felt his face. He had a bloody nose and busted lip. Sighing, he pulled out his first aid kit and fixed the busted lip. He looked at his phone and saw the time and cursed before packing it back up and running to Shinsu's school. When Shinsu was adopted by the Midori as the bully had lessened, Minko didn't let it slide when she knew one of her kids was hurt and he was one of her kids. So when she caught wind of it, she brought hell to the school until they stopped it. It didn't lessen as much outside of school though, at least until Izuku started walking him home. Sure, Shinsu was more than capable of defending himself, but they all knew if someone said something, Shinsu would get the blame. It also helped that Izuku looked like a delinquent every now and again. He often got hurt while training or even just working, so if he showed up in bandages and his glare, then the others would back off right away. Hey, he sighed and turned, seeing the usual group that bothered him, but Izuku was a little late. Your brother not here to pick you up this time. Huh, that gives us some free time. The guy grabbed Shinsu by his collar and was about to punch. What do you think you're doing? The four looked and saw Izuku in an unzipped tracksuit with a bandaged busted lip and an old bloody nose with a glare. Shinsu had to admit, if he saw that, he would be terrified too. We were just— Izuku cut them off and stepped forward. You were letting my brother go, right? If not, then. His glare deepened. The three other boys panicked and ran. Izuku sighed and smiled, turning to Shinsu. You okay, Toshi? I'm not the one with blood on my face. He saw Izuku jump a little before laughing. Yeah, happened during the exam. Nothing too bad, let's go home. The two walked back to the house. Shinsu stared at his brother. He might have been good at lying to everyone else, but Shinsu knew when he saw someone else that was bullied or threatened. Izuku waited almost a week for his letter while the rest of his family and friends tried to convince him he made it into the hero course. There's no way you didn't, Deku. You kick major ass, Katsuki reasoned while punching the bag Kirishima was holding. Yeah, you even saved some people, right? You had to get a little extra for that at least. It was super manly. Katsuki rolled his eyes at his black-haired friend. Those two are right, Izuku. If you don't, Mom will raise hell. Shinsu pointed out from his spot on the floor. Izuku hopped off the rock wall and walked over to Shinsu, who threw him a water bottle. Thanks, but ... what if they don't let me in cause I'm quirkless? All three stopped and looked at him. Izuku, Mom would kill them. Kirishima laughed while Katsuki rolled his eyes again. Ibags has a point. You may be quirkless, but you're not some useless extra. Kakanu, you literally call me Deku. That got Kirishima to fall over laughing while Shinsu tried to contain his own laughter. Fuck off. That's different. It's not my fault I couldn't fucking read. Katsuki punched the punching bag hard enough that it hit Kirishima, knocking him over again. Oh, Bekabro, what the hell? Shut up, shitty hair. Izuku unlocked the door as he and Shinsu finally made it back home. We're home, Izuku called, putting his stuff down on the side table. When neither heard a call back, they looked to each other. Mom, Shinsu called this time as they both walked further into the house. Boys, it's here, she yelled with tears in her eyes while holding an envelope. What? Izuku grabbed the envelope and stared at it for a moment. Open it, Izuku, Shinsu demanded while hanging off his brother's shoulders now. They all sat on the couch while Izuku opened it and a small disc popped out. The screen was black before flickering to life and showing Principal Nenzu. Hello, Midoriya Izuku. I am Principal Nenzu. I am here to tell you your score and if you got in. First off, you did a fantastic job analyzing the area around you and using it to your advantage at times. And with that you got 30 villain points. Inko and Shinso cheered. That normally isn't enough to get into the hero course, but there was another part to the test known as rescue points. It then began showing clips of Izuku saving other examines from Ruble and robots. You racked up quite a few by saving other students. That gave you a total of 90 points. It showed a scoreboard and showed Izuku getting into the top 10. Congratulations, Midoriya. You're in class 1 of the hero course. It turned off as Inko and Shinso tackled Izuku into a hug while they all cheered. I made it, Izuku shouted as he and Shinso made it to the gym. The Baka squad, as they called themselves, along with Kirishima's moms, all jumped up. Hell yeah, Haku cheered as the Baka squad all tackled Izuku into a hug. Told you, fucker. Good job. You're manly as hell. Izuku laughed as they all yelled at him. Okay kids, get off Midoriya, Sakura said as she helped the older boy up. See, as you made it, I think you deserve a little surprise. Izuku quirked an eyebrow. What are you talking about? Haku pulled out a box and walked towards Izuku. Oh no, you guys really didn't have to. He tried to push the box away but they didn't let him. Open it, open it. The group cheered while Katsuki and Shinso smirked at the boy. Izuku opened the box and slowly pulled out its contents. It was a black jacket with white sleeves, a neon green M on the left side of the jacket. On the back was a neon green bunny face and green accents around the sleeves. Oh my god, I'm never taking this off. He felt the fabric and noticed it was similar to a lot of workout fabrics. We made sure it was breathable so you could wear it while you work out and stuff, Mina explained. Yeah, and look on the inside of the collar, Zero yelled, pointing to it. Izuku looked on the inside collar and almost cried. It had the word Squad Big Brother embroidered on it. Oh my god guys. Never mind, he was crying now. This means now legally we're your problem now, Kaminari yelled as the group jumped on him again. Izuku was crying while they all hugged him. It was mine and Ibag's idea. You were getting it either way, Katsuki stated. Izuku smiled and pulled them all into a hug. Let me go. Put me down, Deku, Katsuki and Shinso shouted, trying to escape the group hug. Nope. Izuku was walking with his headphones in and his hair up as he walked to the store. He wore black ripped pants, a white t-shirt that said sweatshirt on it, and the jacket the group had gotten him. He wasn't paying attention as someone grabbed his arm and slammed him against a wall. He hit his head on the wall a little and shut his eyes before blinking and seeing who it was. Well, if it isn't Izuku, Midoriya. Heard you got into UA. He glared a little at seeing 3 boys standing in front of him. He never actually learned their names though, since all they did was bully him and try to get him to hit one of them at least once. Yeah, the hero course. He deadpanned, already ready to either run or take a beating. He couldn't risk them saying he caused the fight. The 2 on either side of the guy glared and one even growled. You think you're better than us, Midoriya? Izuku directed his look to the one talking. I really don't. You're not. They probably only let you in because they felt bad. Huh? Yeah. They'll probably expel you on the first day. The 2 behind the leader began laughing a little. Shut up. The 2 stopped laughing as the middle one spoke. Though you aren't wrong. They'll realize soon enough that you aren't worth the time. Izuku's glare deepened. Or we can show them. He pulled an arm back ready to punch until someone grabbed his wrist. And what do you think you're doing? The 3 turned in confusion while Izuku's eyes widened in shock. What's it to you? The middle asked as he yanked his arm away from the man. Other than the fact you almost hit the kid. I'm a pro hero, so tell me. The 3 jumped at the mention of being a pro. What do you think you're doing? The 2 lackeys ran, leaving the one in the middle who was still holding Izuku by his collar leave. He let go of Izuku before running out of the alleyway. Izuku rubbed his head a little before turning to the man. Thanks, Eraserhead. But I should really. Eraserhead glared at him, making him stop. Do they bother you a lot? Izuku was caught off guard. No, not really. Just light teasing normally. Izuku tried to lie, but Eraserhead didn't seem convinced. You're lying. Izuku looked down a little. Whatever. They should leave you alone now. If not, you still have my number. Then he left and Izuku looked confused for a moment. He just appears then leaves. Izuku shouted, a little frustrated but more relaxed. Izuku was dressed in his uniform and walking the halls of UA a little lost. Hey, you lost. He turned and saw an upperclassman with blonde hair. Yeah, a little. Do you know where class 1 is? Izuku asked nervously. Yep. Here, I'll lead you there. The 2 walked in silence. My name is Mirio Tagata. How about you? Oh, I'm Midoriya Izuku. They stopped in front of a door where Izuku could already hear people yelling. Here we are. Good luck, Midoriya. Mirio began walking away with a wave. Thank you, Tagata-senpai. Izuku walked into the classroom and was already more nervous. There was a group sitting on some desks while seeming to mess with their quirks, and even one using them on some other student. 2 people sitting next to each other with one drawing on the walls and the other smirking with her feet kicked up on a desk. The rest of them seemed either bored and didn't seem to care. He walked over to where his seat was and sat down before pulling out a notebook and writing down his analysis. He had been thinking of what he should use for a weapon. He knew he would want something for sure to use for technology and hacking. Likely something for close range, something for long range, and some other support items he had seen other heroes use, just changed to more his style. E4, go to the principal's office. Izuku looked up and was shocked to see Eraserhead standing there with his quirk activated while looking at the two who were drawing on the wall and smirking, and another two that were messing with their quirks. What? But I didn't ask for excuses. Leave. The four all glared and walked out of the room. The hell was that? Yeah, who even are you? Eraserhead glared again. You three can join them and leave now. Izuku was really shocked. He hadn't seen so many people get expelled all at once, especially ones with strong quirks. Everyone put these on and meet me outside. Before they even made it outside, 3 more people had been expelled and Izuku hadn't even seen it happen. When they did make it outside though, there were only 9 other people left. Today we'll be doing an apprehension test. You can use your quirks during the test. Most were quiet at this point, but of course some people had to speak up. This'll be easy. Yeah, they'll be lucky to even beat me once. Eraserhead sighed and glared at them. You would think you learned by now. You can leave now. Throughout the test, another person had been expelled. Izuku was honestly just glad that he wasn't last though, but it seemed the person that was last was pissed. They were soon expelled, only leaving Izuku and 5 other people at the end of it. Sir. Eraserhead looked to one of the only girls left. Why did you call it an apprehension test instead of a quirk apprehension test? Because one of you doesn't have a quirk. Izuku flinched, but none of them noticed. Though Izuku could hear them begin to talk about how a freak could do that and how dangerous it was for someone so useless. Stop. They all grew quiet. If you think it's too dangerous for a quirkless person to do this, or you have issues with someone being quirkless, raise your hand. Izuku was the only one who didn't raise his hand. Great. You all can leave too then. UA doesn't allow quirk discrimination. Izuku ignored the glares thrown at him as the students left. He turned to Eraserhead once they left. You really shouldn't have done that. They all really are talented and are strong. You shouldn't let some quirkless kid. Eraserhead cut him off by placing a hand on his shoulder. Midoriya. Izuku flinched a little and didn't meet his eyes. You're not just some quirkless kid. You have potential, unlike them. And you're willing to give people a second chance no matter what. You let me choose who really deserves one. Izuku nodded his head. Good. Now go home or I'll expel you too. Izuku walked out of UA that day shocked. He expected for the day to be crazy, but not that crazy. When he picked up Shinso from school that day, the younger noticed his weird behavior right away. Okay, what happened? You look like you just expelled ... You didn't get expelled, did you? Izuku snapped out of it for a second and laughed a little. No, the exact opposite actually. Everyone in my class was expelled except me. Shinso stared at him. What the fuck? Exactly. And my teacher was Eraserhead. He expelled everyone except me. The two walked quietly in shock until Shinso spoke up again. So like ... Did he adopt you or something? Hitoshi. The next day when Izuku was walking to class, he saw Mirio and 2 other people. Hey, Midoriya, you're still here. Izuku smiled and waved before walking up to them. Hey, yeah, I'm glad I'm still here too. It was nice running into you. Izuku walked away from them and walked into class, already seeing Aizawa laying in his sleeping bag. Good, you're here early. Makes my life easier. He stepped out of the sleeping bag and gestured for Izuku to stand by him. We need to figure out your hero costume and support items you'll want or need. Izuku nodded his head. I saw you writing in a notebook labeled hero gear. Mind showing me? Izuku blushed a little and pulled out the notebook from his bag and handed it to Aizawa. The teacher looked at it for a minute before writing some words on a board. Okay, you'll need to explain to me why you'll need these things. On the board it said long range item, close range item, grappling item, and computer. Well, for the computer it would be something that would go on my arm like a small screen, so I would be able to write information down and be able to hack into things. I learned how to hack when I was younger and I've gotten a lot better at it, and that could be helpful with security cameras and systems. For the long-range item, it would be easier to fight someone who fights at long range, and instead of trying to get close to them, I would be able to fight at a further range and then try to get closer once they were weaker. Short range would be the same thing. Since I can fight hand to hand, it would help if they also had a weapon, but I couldn't block it. And for a grappling item, it would help me climb, travel, and pull people closer to me to attack them. Aizawa stared at him in almost shock. Then again, he did have a tendency to ramble a lot. Good. Do you have any ideas for the items? Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. For the short range, I could use a knife or eskrima sticks since they could block and deal damage. If I did the eskrima sticks, I could also add an electrical charge so that if I hit someone with them while they were charged, it could knock the person out too. He explained quickly with Aizawa nodding. The eskrima sticks sound like a better idea since you seem to have more ideas with them. What about the long range item? Izuku looked down for a moment. Well ... What about a gun? Aizawa looked at him. Not with actual bullets, unless they're needed, but more of rubber bullets and beanbag shots. They are less lethal and still do damage. It would be a lot safer to. Aizawa cut him off. Good, you at least have done research on them. I'll talk to Snipe and have him teach you all the safety rules and anything else you'll need. Izuku let out a breath of relief. Now what about the grappling item? Izuku blushed. When I came up with that. I was watching a video of you fighting ... and I thought it was really cool how you used your capture weapon. So I thought something similar would work. Not the same thing though, since then I'm just copying you obviously. But maybe something that would go on my arms that I could have under my sleeves. That way it's a hidden weapon and people don't expect it. Aizawa nodded his head. Okay, we'll have to work on your movements then and see how well it'll work with certain styles and how you'll use it. Izuku smiled and nodded his head. You know a lot about building support items it seems. Go to Power Loader and work with him on making your costume. Izuku nodded and walked out the door heading to the support room. Izuku walked to the support room and knocked on the door before opening it. How can I help you? Power Loader asked as Izuku walked in. Aizawa-sensei sent me here to work with you on my costume and support items. Power Loader paused and stared at him. Oh, you weren't expelled. Okay, well, do you have ideas for what you want? Izuku was confused but waved it off and showed him the notebook and the added information. Yeah, with this it would be a good idea to use a curved piece of glass or strong plastic since it would be harder to break if someone tried to attack that arm. Power Loader nodded his head. You seem to know your way around support items. Izuku blushed and rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, it's a hobby I picked up. I love building and taking apart stuff. Power Loader smiled. Great, let's get to work on everything then. Snipe. The gun hero turned to Aizawa. I need you to teach my student how to use a gun. The entire teacher's lounge went silent. You still have a student. You're giving them a gun. He activated his quirk. Yes and yes, now will you teach him? He asked through gritted teeth to the other pro. Of course, Aizawa. Would it be better to do it after school or during? Aizawa had to think. He didn't know Izuku's schedule. I'll have to ask him. I'll get back to you later. He walked out of the teacher's lounge and down to the support room where he heard someone talking excitedly. He opened the door to find Izuku writing out blueprints. If we make it a small bracelet and lace the capture weapon around it in my arms, it would be able to shoot it out like a grappling hook. And we could ohai Aizawa-sensei. Izuku greeted, stepping away from the blueprints for a moment. Good to see you take this seriously then. Snipe wants to know if it would be better to teach you gun training during school or after. Izuku thought about it for a second. Probably during. Unless I would be able to leave and pick my brother up and bring him back. Wait, no, cause I still have to train at the dojo and they would probably kill me if I didn't show up ... Yeah, during would be better. He nodded his head and left to go tell Snipe. Izuku was going on his daily run before school. He knew he would do more running and exercising again later during and after school, but he still liked to keep a consistent schedule. Once he was done with his run, he would have to walk Shinso and Katsuki to school, then run home, grab his stuff and change before running to UA. He was honestly lucky that he didn't live that far from the school. He was running back to his house after dropping off Shinso and Katsuki when he accidentally ran into someone, which was to be expected since he was listening to music and running. Oh no, I am so sorry. Are you okay? He asked, standing up to help the man up. I'm fine, problem child. He quickly realized that it was Aizawa with present mic and Midnight. Oh crap, sorry Aizawa-sensei, I wasn't watching where I was going. Aizawa rolled his eyes, standing up fully now. I said it's fine. He looked and realized that Izuku was in shorts, a tank top, and wearing a sports jacket. Shouldn't you be dressed for school? Oh, I always run in the mornings. I just dropped off Toshi and Kaken at school, so I was heading back to grab my stuff, then run to school and change. He explained with a smile. Aizawa quirked an eyebrow but sighed. Just don't be late. Izuku smiled and waved before going back to his run. God, you're such a dad. Midnight teased once Izuku was out of earshot. No, I'm not. Sho, you just parented him. And I can guarantee that when he comes to class you're gonna give him water so he's hydrated. Present Mid declared. Aizawa was silent. Oh my god, he was. Midnight shouted while laughing. When Izuku walked into his class, a bottle of water was thrown at him that he caught. Thank you. Aizawa nodded his head. You'll be working with Power Loader more today to finish everything you need. Izuku nodded his head, putting his bag down and taking his blazer off. I also want to get a look at your analysis, so hand me any notebooks you have. Izuku was a little shocked. He didn't think his analysis was much. Are you sure? Aizawa shot him a glare, making him shut up and take the two notebooks he had out and handed them to Aizawa. One was labeled heroes while the other was villains. Good. Now go to the support department. When lunch hits, get food and come back here so we can do actual classes. Izuku nodded his head, grabbing another notebook before heading out. Aizawa read through the two notebooks as we went to the teacher's lounge. It was break when the other teachers came in to see Aizawa sitting at his desk looking shocked. Shouldn't you be with your kid? Midnight joked again. Shut up and look at this. He handed her the hero notebook that was open to her page. At the moment he's analyzed all of us, figured most of our weaknesses and how to counter them and anything else about us. Wow, he even figured out yours. Midnight gasped, flipping through some of the pages. Aizawa was now looking through the villain notebook. There are even more ways for the person to be taken down in the team-ups that would be best against those people. His analysis on villains is even better though. With the heroes he looks for things in their style to fix or learn. With the villains he sees how to take them down and what heroes would be best to fight them. Hey Aizawa-sensei, Lunkrush told me to bring you food too since he knows you haven't eaten. You need to eat mo. Why is everyone staring at me? Izuku asked as he closed the door with a foot since his arms had food in them. Kid, why didn't you show me this sooner? Aizawa asked, waving one of the notebooks. He blushed a little. I know they aren't that good. It's more of just a hobby really. He set the plates down on Aizawa's desk as he explained. Just a hobby. Midoriya, you figured out how to take down a villain that a lot of the heroes haven't caught yet. Izuku quirked an eyebrow before seeing what page he was on. Oh, Phantom. He's easy though. His quirk lets him phase through stuff. But if you look at the videos, it depends on the density of the stuff. So you could just set a trap with a higher density, and when he phases through, have someone inside take him down. And if he somehow gets out, have the place surrounded. He explained with a shrug of his shoulders. He really didn't think it was that important. Problem child. Izuku jumped a little. I'm going to show you a video. And I want you to analyze both parties, then tell me what you can figure out. Got it? Izuku nodded nervously. Aizawa opened his computer, typing a few things before turning it and pressing play on the video. As soon as it started, the teachers heard him mumble while he put one of his hands over his mouth slightly. The video wasn't long though, only about 30 seconds or so. Tell me what you saw. The one in all black is about 57 and likely weighs about 160, male, and their quirk seems to let them break their bones out and use them as weapons. That's why their knife was oddly shaped and close to white while still having blood on it. Though wherever they create the new weapon is useless for about 20 seconds until the bone grows back. The person in the blue and gold was about the same height and weighs around 180, female, and their quirk lets them have control over small metals. They can mold them into different objects, but the larger the object, the more fragile it is and easy to break. They can't seem to focus much when molding the weapon, though it only takes a few seconds to create the weapon. He spoke quickly, but Aizawa was still able to understand him. Good, and you're right. Tomorrow bring in any other notebooks you have. I'm going to teach you coding. Now go eat lunch, then head to your other classes. Izuku nodded his head and smiled before grabbing his food and walking out the door. God, you're such a dad. You're so proud of him. Midnight teased more. Aizawa pushed her before sitting down and eating the food Izuku had brought him. After school, he said goodbye to Aizawa before going to the bathroom and changing back into his street clothes. He put on some music as he walked the streets. He had a few more minutes until he needed to pick up Shinso and the others from school. He was walking past an alley when something caught his attention. He paused his music and looked down the alley, making sure not to reveal himself. Oh really, what's someone with a weak quirk like yours gonna do? He looked closer and realized it was Kirishima they were cornering. What do you think you're doing? Izuku asked, stepping out with his arms crossed. The group jumped and Kirishima looked happy but confused at seeing Izuku there. Oh, you're Shinsu's older brother, right? We were just talking with our friend Senpai. One of the guys stuttered out. Izuku quirked an eyebrow but didn't take his eyes off of the group when he talked to Kirishima. Right, Kirishima, are you friends with these guys? Kirishima shook his head and the group shot him a glare. That's what I thought. So what are you doing? None of them answered. He uncrossed his arms and took a few steps forward, making them all jump and run past him. He didn't lighten his glare until they were all gone. You okay? They didn't hurt you, right? Izuku asked Kirishima, who looked amazed. I'm fine. That was so cool though. You just glared and they ran away. Izuku blushed and rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, before I met you guys they always tried to start fights with Toshi, so I would walk up covered in bandages and a glare. According to Toshi and Kaken, I have a reputation. He joked as the two walked out of the alley. Kiri, why'd you run off? Mina yelled while tackling the other boy with Shiro and Kaminari not far behind. He just laughed but didn't answer the question while Katsuki and Shinso walked up to them. You guys ready to go? Izuku was writing in one of his notebooks about a new hero that had shown up. It was getting pretty late too, and he knew he needed to sleep but he couldn't. It felt like he wasn't doing enough about something. He knew he was training enough with the combination of school and the gym. He was smart enough. If what Aizawa had said was anything to go by, then what was it? He thought about it more than he realized the problem. He didn't have a job. He didn't need one, of course, since his mom made enough money to make sure everyone was comfortable and having enough for other activities and stuff they wanted. But it felt like he wasn't pulling his weight. Closing the notebook, he turned to his computer and typed in places hiring. He knew he needed something that would have a flexible schedule, let him do work even though he was 16, and something simple so he didn't overwork himself. That's when he found it, a small cafe. It was looking for someone who didn't mind working later and heavy lifting. He wrote down the number and decided to ask his mom about it in the morning. The next morning Izuku was nervous. He had done his research on the place and it looked like a good place to work. He would be the only other worker there since it was only the owner and she just needed a little help with heavy lifting, baking, and customers. He walked downstairs where Inko was watching TV at the moment since she had the weekend off. "Morning, Mom," he called walking into the room. She turned and smiled at him. "Morning, sweetie." She stared at him for a moment. "Okay, what is it?" she asked with a teasing smirk. He jumped a little and blushed. What? You always get this look on your face when you want to ask or do something." He blushed more and looked down. He rubbed the back of his neck before finally looking up. "I want to get a job." She looked shocked. "I know I don't need one. After all, you make good money and we live comfortably and I know my schedule is usually pretty busy. But I really want one, cause then it feels like I'm actually helping in some way." Or Inko cut him off by placing her hands on his shoulders. "Izuku, honey, it's okay to want to get a job, but you know it'll be difficult with school, right?" He smiled and nodded his head. "I know. That's why I did a little research last night. I found this place that needs an extra hand and it works around my schedule." She smiled and nodded her head. "Okay, honey, as long as you're sure, you can head out there later, but please get some more sleep, okay? I can tell you're still tired." He laughed a little before hugging his mom and going back upstairs. When he woke back up, he immediately got dressed in a white shirt, black jeans, and his jacket before calling the place. "Hello, this is Mayumi, owner of Sunflower Cafe. How can I help you?" A woman spoke over the phone in a cheery voice. "Hi, I was calling because I saw your ad for another worker and I was wondering if I could come in and apply." There was a squeal for a second. "Of course, just tell me your name and come on in." "Right, my name's Midoriya Izuku. I'll be in soon." He hung up after a quick goodbye. He grabbed his phone and his house keys before leaving a quick note and going to the cafe. He made it there pretty quickly and walked in. He looked around and saw how calm and homey it felt. Instead of normal seating, there were booths, lounge chairs, and 2 window sills with padding to sit. There were fairy lights hanging from the ceiling and a few normal lights so you could actually see, along with a few lamps and bookshelves. The front counter had a small window showing baked goods, all seeming to have a soft theme almost, while the other side of the counter had free space with a few chairs. A woman with black straight hair, dark skin, she stood almost gracefully behind the counter with a wide smile. "Hello, how can I help you?" she asked politely as he walked up to the counter. "Hi, I'm Midoriya Izuku. I'm here about the job." She seemed to brighten up at that and walked around the counter quickly. "Thank you so much for calling. Shall we get started with the interview? Thank you for letting me come." And of course, the two sat down at one of the booths and Mayumi turned to him. "Okay, first, your name, age, school, and quirk." She pulled out a notepad. "Right, my name's Midoriya Izuku. I'm 16, I go to UA, and I'm quirkless." He answered the last one a little nervous. "Really? What course are you in at UA?" she asked with wonder in her eyes. He was shocked for a moment before answering. "Oh, I'm in class 1 of the hero course." She nodded her head and wrote it down. "Okay, now why do you want this job?" He had to think how to word it for a moment. "Well, my mom works as a nurse at the hospital and is busy a lot. I have school, I train at a gym, and I have my little brother to look after. But I felt like I wasn't doing enough to help, so I looked for a job that would work with what I can do and around my schedule. I found this place and it seemed like a good fit," he explained with a bright smile. "You're honest, I like that. You also have a very happy and welcoming face, which is also good for business. And you wouldn't mind working late hours. I usually only stay open till about midnight since there are some underground heroes that come by every now and again. Nope, I usually have issues sleeping anyway and don't get to bed around 1 so this would give me something to do." She smiled and wrote down more. "Okay, and one last question, do you have any skills?" Izuku had to think as to what counted as skill. "Well, I know how to cook, bake, mix drinks, I'm pretty good at fighting, gymnastics, parkour. I know how to operate firearms. I can analyze stuff, I can create support items, hack stuff, oh, I know sign language too." Mayumi stared at him for a moment. "So you could essentially be a bodyguard but you want to work at a cafe." He blushed a little but nodded his head. "Well, okay then. When do you want to start?" Shinso had woken up a little confused. First it was the fact that Izuku wasn't there, then it was the note on the table. He had read it over a few times and was still lost. Why was Izuku getting a job? He didn't get much more time to think over it though as the front door opened revealing the boy in question. "Toshi, you're awake." Izuku greeted, kicking his shoes off. "Why are you getting a job?" he asked, holding the note up. "Oh, well, I kinda felt like I wasn't helping enough." Shinso quirked an eyebrow. "That's not something you answer with another question." Izuku laughed a little awkwardly. "You know, you and Aizawa-sensei sound really similar." Shinso blushed and glared, "But I just felt I could help more so I decided to get a job. And they hired me. I start tomorrow actually." Shinso continued to glare at his brother, but he seemed more exhausted than anything. "Whatever, just don't die." Izuku laughed and dragged his brother into a hug. "Oh, you care. Hey, let me go." Adding the cafe to Izuku's schedule was a lot easier than he expected. He would go to school, pick the others up, go to the gym for an hour, head to the cafe and finish there before doing a few exercises and going home. He hadn't worked any later shifts, which he was silently glad for. Since he added it did make him a little more worn out, but he also slept better thanks to it. Sure, it wasn't the best sleep schedule, but it was better than nothing. Izuku was at the gym working on a punching bag when his phone started ringing. "Hey, your phone's ringing," Kirishima called from the bench. Izuku turned. "Who is it?" "It says Mayumi." Izuku held up his hand as Kirishima threw it. He caught it and quickly answered it. "Is everything okay?" There were a few noises before she spoke. "Sort of. There's a family emergency, and I was wondering if you could come in early and work the night shift." "I know it's a lot to ask," Izuku cut her off. "It's no problem. When do you need me in?" Can you be here in 10? Izuku looked at the time. "Yep, I'll change really quickly and take over. I hope everything goes okay." "Thanks, Midoriya. You're a lifesaver." They both said goodbye before Izuku quickly grabbed his stuff. "I gotta go, guys. I'll see you all later." He left quickly, confusing the group, though Shinso could guess what happened already. "Damn, where's Deku going in such a fucking rush?" Bakugo asked, looking at the door. His boss called him into work, Shinso explained while lying on the floor. "He has a job." Izuku walked into the cafe and immediately went to the back and changed into his uniform. The place didn't actually have a uniform, but the general attire was business casual, so he wore a black button-up and blue jeans with his hair tied up. "Thank you for coming in so suddenly, Midoriya." "I owe you," Mayumi greeted, hugging the boy. He hugged back before separating. "Don't worry about it. Now you go and deal with your emergency." He playfully shoved her before grabbing a waist apron and a notepad with a pen. Luckily, the place wasn't busy, seeing as there was only a businessman there at the moment who was working on his computer. So Izuku took the time to wipe down the tables, organize the silverware, make a few extra sweets, and doing some of his school work on the counter. A few people came in throughout the day, but nothing big happened, or at least until it got later in the night. He called his mom and Shinso to let them know that he was going to be home later than usual since Mayumi needed him there. His mom told him to make it home safe, while Shinso told him that he would wait for him in the living room when he got home. It was getting closer to midnight as he whipped down a few more tables and took care of trash and dishes when the bell on the door rang. "Just a moment," he called from the kitchen. He put down everything and whipped his hands before walking back to the front. "Hi. How can I?" He stopped mid-sentence when his eyes landed on Aizawa, who seemed just as shocked. "Midoriya, what are you doing here?" he asked with a sigh. Izuku chuckled and rubbed the back of his neck. Well, I work here actually." That seemed to shock the teacher just as much. "But what can I get you?" Izuku glossed over the fact that he was 16 and had a job, even though he didn't actually need one. "Right, I'll take a black coffee." Izuku nodded and began making it. It was slightly awkward before Izuku decided to break the silence. "So did you already eat dinner?" The teacher quirked an eyebrow. "Well, it's just Mike-sensei told me that you've been eating more at school since I brought you lunch. And I wanted to know if you had eaten. Since you work as a pro, you need to have a healthy eating schedule. And you're also my teacher, and I'm gonna stop talking now." He blushed as he looked down at the cup before handing it to Aizawa. "No, I haven't." Izuku looked up shocked, before glaring slightly at the teacher. "Fine, I'll take a muffin." Izuku smiled and got one for his teacher and handed it to him. Aizawa was about to pull out his wallet when Izuku stopped him. "Nope, I'll cover it." Izuku pulled out his own and took out the money and put it in the cash register. Aizawa glared at him. "You're such a problem child." He sighed out before leaving. Izuku smiled before beginning to close up the shop. Since Izuku was the only student in his class, it made things a little easy, but also complicated, especially when it came to group activities. "Get suited up and head outside," Aizawa commanded as soon as Izuku walked in. He tossed the Tina suitcase before walking out. Izuku looked at it weirdly before realizing it must have been his hero costume. He walked to the changing rooms and opened up the case. Inside was tight black athletic tank top, a black leather jacket with a white hood, fingerless white gloves, a white metal mask, black cargo pants, white combat boots with black metal soles, a black belt with white pockets on it, 2 guns, white thigh holsters, his escrima rods, and a pile of cloth. He picked it up and examined it before realizing it was 2 of Aizawa's capture weapons. He geeked out for a moment before trying to realize where they were supposed to go. He saw a note in the case and read it. "Dear Midoriya, the capture weapons given to you are meant to be wrapped around your arms. Good luck. Nedzu and Power Loader." He was shocked to see Nedzu on it but chose to ignore it. Getting dressed, he looked in the side mirror and smiled. He also noticed that the computer on his arm was pretty well hidden, and you couldn't see the screen unless you were looking directly at it. He might have to add more stuff later. He walked to the front and saw 13, Aizawa, and Midnight standing at the bus. All 3 looked to him as he ran up to them. "Not bad, kid." Izuku smiled, though you could only really tell by his eyes since he had the mask on. 13 and Aizawa got on the bus with Izuku and Midnight following. So Midoriya, are you excited? Midnight asked, since there wasn't really anyone for Izuku to talk to. Yeah, I'm not really sure what we're doing, but it probably has something to do with rescue since 13 is here and we're driving somewhere. Plus I haven't used or even seen my hero costume till now. Then again, it wouldn't explain why you are here. You're not a rescue hero, not that I don't think you're an amazing hero. You really are, but you tend to deal with more strict situations because of your quirk. But you could be used as a villain maybe. It would be. He slowly got quieter as he began to mumble. This shocked Midnight a little. He's fine, just does that sometimes. Aizawa reassured, making her laugh a little. I don't think I've ever seen him talk this much, usually pretty quiet in my class. Izuku seemed to snap out of it and slammed a hand over his mouth. Sorry, didn't mean to start doing that. He was blushing lightly, but he was nervous. Last time he had mumbled in school it didn't go well. No worries, problem child. Izuku nodded. Did you do the homework I assigned you? Izuku moved his hand and nodded. You wanted me to analyze that wind hero, right? Izuku asked, trying to remember everything he wrote down while Aizawa nodded. I'll have to catalog all my analysis into the computer. That way I can have it on hand if I need it. He mumbled absent-mindedly, touching where the computer was but the hero. It wasn't long till they made it to a large dome building. Getting off the bus, 13 started to explain everything to Izuku. This is the unexpected simulation joint, they announced as they all walked in. Izuku was practically bouncing on his feet in excitement. Here you'll be tested and work on your rescuing as a hero. Okay, now he was bouncing. A few ground stuff first. While we're doing this, don't be afraid to ask for help if you're lost or in danger. Izuku nodded his head along. Be careful and think of yourself first. And finally, have fun and learn. Izuku clapped at the end while 13 bowed. 13 sensei. They looked to him. Can I ask you more about your quirk? Of course. What do you want to know? While those two were talking, Aizawa and Midnight walked around the place a little. How well do you think your kid's gonna do? Midnight asked, looking around some of the areas. He'll do fine. He knows what to do and what not to, Aizawa stated simply, though Midnight had a smirk on her face. You admit he's your kid then? Aizawa glared at her, making her laugh even more. It was finally time for their exercises to start and Izuku was still bouncing in excitement. For the first one we'll do a few simple things, like first aid. We'll teach you signs for certain things and go from there, 13 explained. Izuku nodded his head. This would be easy for him. He did a lot of research on injuries and things to do to fix them. He even knew how to help if you got shot in the eye with a rubber bullet. Okay, Aizawa on the ground. Aizawa groaned as he laid down. Now be in pain, 13 commanded. Aizawa rolled his eyes. Oh, it hurts. Ouch. Izuku was trying not to laugh since Aizawa wasn't very convincing. But 13 went with it. Okay, now do what you think is right and we'll help you along the way. Izuku nodded and walked over to Aizawa before crouching down. Hi, can you tell me what happened? Izuku asked, pulling down his mask. He heard it can calm down people in an accident if they know what you look like. I was told to lay on the ground. Izuku almost burst out laughing at that, making Aizawa smile slightly before 13 glared at him. I was in a car crash. Izuku collected himself and became serious again. Okay, can you tell me where you feel the most pain? Aizawa had to think about it for a second. My chest, leg, and head. Izuku reached into one of his pockets and pulled out a small flashlight and waved it in Aizawa's eyes. He stopped for a minute before turning to 13 and Midnight. For the head injury, Aizawa-sensei's pupils and everything will react normally, but I don't know if he actually does have something wrong since nothing will be out of the norm. That seemed to shock all three teachers. And how do you know that? 13 asked, a little intrigued. Oh, well, I have a lot of free time, so I tend to do a lot of research on stuff that I think can help me be a hero. Plus my mom's a nurse. The three teachers were a little shocked, because most kids use their free time to hang out with friends. Okay, well, if everything is reacting normally, then what do you think the pain would be? Izuku thought about it for a moment. Possibly a small concussion or headache. Though I would still prefer to get the person to a hospital as soon as possible just in case. 13 nodded and he continued looking over Aizawa for other injuries. You said your chest, right? Is it hard to breathe? Izuku asked with a hand on the man's chest to measure his breathing. It did seem a little labored actually. Yes, there's pressure on my lungs. Izuku glared a little and leaned down, actually listening to his breathing. He leaned back up and looked to his teacher. Aizawa-sensei, are you actually injured? Because your breathing is a little slow and rough sounding, and you flinch a little when breathing. Aizawa seemed shocked that he had noticed. I may have been kicked in the chest and sent into a wall. All three of them glared at Aizawa, though Midnight looked closer to laughing. Sensei, you can't do that. He checked the others' breathing again and put a little pressure in places. Seeing Aizawa wince a couple times, you have a few bruised ribs but nothing's broken. You need to take care of yourself more. Izuku scolded. Now he thought the teacher might have a small concussion. I'm a pro, I can't. Izuku cut him off. Nope, No excuses. You might have a concussion too. Izuku checked his eyes again and it did seem like it. Izuku glared at his teacher. You do. Did you get hurt anywhere else? Normally 13 and Midnight would be helping. But Midnight was having too much fun recording it and 13 watching. My shoulder and left leg. Izuku nodded, checking those parts. Okay, looks like you have a few pulled and strained muscles but nothing too serious. Aizawa nodded. But why didn't you go see Recovery Girl? You could be seriously hurt. I'm an amateur, you know. Aizawa was about to speak before Izuku stopped him. You know you aren't a very good role model. What would you do if I got badly hurt but didn't go see Recovery Girl? Izuku put his hands on his hips. I would scold you. Exactly. The USJ trip had been cut short since it just turned into Izuku lecturing Aizawa about health and safety. Though he did learn a little more about first aid. He was at the cafe again though since he had a break from the gym. Mayumi was out getting more items they needed. But the place wasn't that busy. A few people scattered around on their phones or working on school work. He was giving people refills when one of the students there stopped him. Sorry if this is a little strange, but we were wondering if you knew how to do this. A girl with a black ponytail asked. She was sitting at a table with a girl who had short purple hair and earphone jacks hanging from her ears. Izuku looked down at what they were doing. Oh, it's okay. He looked at the girl's work first. Okay, you just messed up a little here. You need to make that a plus and switch those numbers is all. Both looked and realized the mistake. Oh crap, I have to go back and redo my work. The girl with purple hair groaned. Izuku felt a little bad. Well, if you want you can come sit at the counter. I can try and help more. Both girls seemed shocked but excited. Are you sure? We don't want to bother you while you're working. The girl with the ponytail asked. Don't worry, this place doesn't get that busy. Plus Mayumi should be back soon. The girls nodded and moved their stuff to the counter while Izuku cleaned a few tables. When he went back to the counter they introduced themselves. I'm Yaoyorozu Momo, by the way. Jiro Kyoka. Izuku smiled and shook his hand with Momo, who offered it. Midoriya, Izuku at your service. Izuku was more than happy to help the two girls out with their work. He told them to come again if they ever need help with anything since he didn't mind the extra company. He had another late shift that night and had seen his teacher again. Aizawa-sensei, you should really take a break so your injuries can heal properly if you aren't going to go see Recovery Girl. Izuku scolded, handing the man a coffee and muffin. I already saw Recovery Girl to heal. I'll try to be more careful. Izuku smiled and nodded his head. Good. Once the teacher left, Izuku began closing up. Not many things were left to clean since Izuku did that a lot when it wasn't busy. Once everything was cleaned, he closed up and started the walk back to his house. He stopped at an alley though when he saw something. Pausing, he looked down trying to spot something. There was a crash and an animal running out that made him jump a little, but it felt like something was still there. He walked down it, having his hands clenched in case he had to fight. He was near the end when he heard a groan. He turned quickly and saw someone slumped against the wall. Oh my god. Izuku quickly ran over and crouched in front of the person while he shouldered his bag off. He looked at the person closely, moving their head with his hands a little to check for a pulse. It was there and even. The breathing seemed a little labored but nothing too bad. He saw they had a few scratches and bruises along with a large cut near their hairline. Looking a little closer, he also saw they had a bad shoulder injury. Crap, they need the hospital. He moved his hand away from their face but a hand stopped him. He jumped a little seeing that they grabbed his arm and yanked a little. No, hospital. He scrunched his eyebrows and crouched. You're injured, you need help. The hand on his wrist tightened and even seemed to burn a little. The person's eyes opened more. No, hospital. He stared at them before sighing. He crouched down and looked them over a little more. It wasn't life-threatening or anything, luckily. Fine, they let go of him. While they seemed half-lucid, it was obvious they wouldn't be able to walk. I'm going to regret this. He grabbed onto their arm before turning and pulling them onto his back. They were a little heavy but not too much, so it wasn't as difficult. What are you doing? They asked through slurred words. Izuku rolled his eyes. They seemed just as stubborn as Aizawa. I'm taking you to my place so you can get help. He felt the others start to shift, or I can leave you to bleed out. The shifting stopped. Okay, wanna tell me your name? Dabi. Izuku knew it was a fake name, which meant the guy didn't trust him. Midoriya, Izuku at your service, and we're here. He opened the door and carefully lowered Dabi onto the couch, making sure not to aggravate any wounds. Izuku looked around the house for a second. Okay, my mom and brother are asleep right now, but mom should be getting up in a couple hours. Dabi started to get up but grunted. Oh no you don't. Where do you think you're going? Said your mom might be getting up soon. Izuku just glared as he made the others sit back down. So, you're injured. Besides, she's a nurse. She probably won't notice. There was creaking, getting both of their attention to see Shinso walking out of the hall. Izuku, what are you? He looked to Dabi, who seemed ready to run before sighing. I'll get the medical stuff. Thanks, Toshi. He called back as the other went back down the hall. Dabi looked between the hall and Izuku. He seemed pretty relaxed for having a stranger bleeding out on his couch. Izuku laughed a little while sitting down. It's kinda how he got here. Izuku didn't explain further as Shinso came back with the supplies. He sat next to Dabi and just scrolled on his phone while Izuku wrapped and treated the wounds until he got to the shoulder. This is gonna hurt. Izuku put one hand against the shoulder near the wound and used the other to grab the disinfectant while putting the cloth between his teeth. Sorry, Izuku whispered before pouring it on Dabi's shoulder. The other gritted his teeth and grabbed Izuku's wrist again. Sorry. He stopped and took the cloth, putting pressure on the wound. Grabbing the thread, he quickly sewed it up. Though it was a little messy, it was as good as it was gonna get. Okay, should be good now. Dabi finally let go of Izuku's wrist. He knew it was gonna bruise and could tell it was first, close to second-degree burns. He wrapped the injury just in case before looking at his own. I'll be right back. Toshi makes sure he doesn't move. Shinso hummed as Izuku walked away. So what's your deal? Shinso asked, looking at Dabi. Dabi quirked an eyebrow. The hell you mean? What's your deal? Shinso smirked. Well, Izuku has a tendency to pick up strays, but none this messed up. Dabi rolled his eyes. Oh yeah, well what about you then? Shinso shrugged his shoulders. Abusive foster homes. He kidnapped me one night and now I live with him. Dabi was a little shocked at the answer. He sighed, leaning back. Found me bleeding out in an alley after a fight. Shinso just nodded. Sounds fun. Izuku came back with gauze wrapped around his wrist. Either of you hungry or thirsty? Izuku asked while walking into the kitchen. I'll take a water and sandwich. Shinso looked to Dabi expecting an answer. Same thing. Izuku looked at him for a minute. Okay. Soon it was almost 4 in the morning and the three of them were all eating and drinking. But Dabi was just shocked and confused at how relaxed they seemed around him even though they didn't know who he was. So you just kidnap people for fun? Izuku and Shinso almost spit out what was in their mouths, though Izuku's was out of shock while Shinso was trying not to laugh. What? He said you kidnapped him, and you kidnapped me. Izuku turned to Shinso who was still trying not to laugh. You told him that I kidnapped you. Shinso nodded while trying to breathe. Now first of all, I didn't. You called me. Second of all, you can leave. Dabi almost stood up as soon as her healed up. I could be a criminal, you know. Some villain with a body count. Izuku looked at him with a smirk. Are you? Dabi shook his head. Then I don't need to worry. Dabi didn't get why this guy was so trusting and it was kinda worrying him now. Shinso sat up and turned the TV on before settling on a documentary channel. But I'm a guy covered in scars, bleeding out in an alley. Shinso groaned and rolled his head back. How long are you gonna ask the same question? Dabi just shrugged his shoulders. He doesn't know until something makes sense. Are you dangerous? Izuku asked. I could kill you. So could a hero. So could water. So could a very determined goose. You're not special. Shinso joked at the end, making Izuku laugh a little. Fine, I'll shut up. It wasn't long before they heard an alarm go off and someone upstairs start to move around. Mom's awake, Shinso kindly pointed out. Crap, what time is it? Izuku stood up and saw it was a little after 6. I gotta get ready, you too, Toshi, and take a nap or something after school. Dabi watched the two get up. And what about you, mister? I need a full schedule. Izuku playfully shoved him. I don't have work today, so I'll be at the gym. Dabi wasn't sure what to do. The two had left and he felt like if he left the house then Izuku would somehow track him down. There were footsteps and Inko walked out before stopping and staring at Dabi. Well, hello. Izuku and Hitoshi didn't tell me we had a quest. He wasn't really sure how to respond. I'm Inko, by the way. Their mother. Nice to meet you. Dabi. Nice to meet you, Dabi. But I have to go soon. Have a good day, boys. She called, grabbing her keys and a jacket. Bye, Mom. Love you, Mom. The two called back. Soon the two came back down. It was almost 7. Izuku was wearing jeans, a black shirt, his sports jacket, and had his hair tied up while Shinso was in his uniform. The two sat back down for a minute. So Dabi, I usually walk Toshi and the others to school before coming back here and changing. You wanna come with or stay here? Dabi didn't feel comfortable staying in a stranger's house exactly. I guess I'll come. Who are the others though? Izuku didn't get to answer as banging was heard from the door. Boy, Deku, I begs. Let's go. Dabi just stared at the door. That's Kaken. Well, Bakugo. Don't worry, he's nice. The three stood up, though Dabi was a little slower since he was a little sore still. Who the fuck is that? Katsuki asked as soon as they opened the door. This is Dabi. Katsuki just looked him up and down. Whatever, we gotta get shitty hair and the extras. Shinso and Katsuki mostly talked to each other while Izuku and Dabi walked behind them. Dabi was sort of trying to figure out why they were all just okay with him being there. This absolute stranger that didn't give a real name, hadn't done anything for them, covered in ugly scars, and bleed on their couch. You're wondering why we're all okay with this, right? Izuku asked, eyes not leaving the two in front of them as they kept talking. Yeah, to be honest, I don't really know. You look like you needed help and I could give it to you. Doesn't matter what you look like, who you are, or what your quirk is, or if you even have one. Dabi paused for a second and looked at Izuku. You're quirkless. Izuku nodded as they kept walking with Dabi needing to catch up for a second. It was silent for a second, but Izuku could tell Dabi didn't mind. Bakugo, Senpai, Shinso. A group of 4 jumped out and tackled Katsuki while they waved to the others. Kirishima stood up while the other 3 kept bothering Katsuki and Shinso. Whoa, Dabi flinched back a little, expecting them to say something about the scars. You look so cool. I'm Kirishima Ijiro. Nice to meet you. Dabi was shocked once again by the group. I'm Kaminari Denki. Who are you, gorgeous? Dabi just stared at him while Shinso smacked him upside the head. Stop being stupid. Sorry about him, he's like that with everyone. Izuku waved his hand dismissively. I'm Siro. Mina. He nodded at the 2. Dabi. The 4 looked at him with stars in their eyes. That's so cool. I wish I had a cool name. Bro, that's manly. They had walked the group to school and were walking back to the house in comfortable silence until someone broke it. Is that Midoriya? Izuku flinched at the voice and Dabi took notice quickly and stepped closer to Izuku on instinct. Izuku tried to walk a little faster but was stopped when a hand grabbed him. Midoriya, it is you. Izuku was forced to turn around and Dabi followed. Though he looked more angry than anything. How have you been? Izuku knew they weren't really asking. Dabi could almost see the anxiety rolling off of Izuku. Whatever, you know I'm not really asking. After all, no one cares about a freak like you. Dabi stepped between them and glared. How about backing off? He growled. Izuku was shocked at the action. Who the hell are you? Dabi stepped closer and Izuku could see slight flames on his face. Your worst fucking nightmare. The other teen looked scared shitless. Now go. The teen quickly turned and ran. Izuku stood there in shock as Dabi turned back around. What? That was so cool. Oh my gosh. He just stared at him and he ran. Is this what the others feel like? He mumbled out the end, making Dabi confused. Okay, well done, you have school. Izuku looked at the time. He still had a good 30 minutes. Oh crap, yeah, we gotta head back. Izuku was walking to the school with Dabi on a phone he had remade from scratch. You remade this phone? Izuku chuckled a little. Yep, it was difficult, but I set it up so it contacts only people with a specific app sort of thing. He heard a hum over the phone. It was a little difficult, but it works. Oh. And if you need anything, just text. It should show up on the screen for my costume. Right, and I'm stuck here till. Oh, if you want you can meet me near UA once school gets out around 3. I have to get the others too. Then we go to a gym Kirishima's mom's work at. Normally I also have work, but I got today off. Kid was right. You do have a busy schedule. Dabi chuckled over the other end. Haha, but really you're free to come to the school and text me. Heard you the first time, Midoriya. I'll make sure to keep you updated. Okay, I gotta go. See y'all later, Dabi. Izuku hung up and walked into the classroom, seeing Aizawa looking at papers. Good morning, Aizawa-sensei. He waved with his left hand, forgetting it had the wrapping on it. Morning, my. Aizawa stopped looking at Izuku's hand. What happened to your hand? Izuku jumped a little and hid it. Oh, I burned it while cooking last night after I got home. Toshi was still awake and was hungry. He explained a little quickly. Aizawa looked from him to the bandaged hand. As long as it doesn't affect you during training. Izuku nodded as he sat down and pulled out his notebooks. Dabi, how do ovens work? Midoriya, what are you doing? Dabi, never mind, figured it out. Midoriya, what? Dabi, are any of you allergic to anything? Midoriya, no. Aizawa was now curious as to why at random points Izuku would pull out his phone and answer a text. He wasn't angry since it wasn't interrupting anything, but with that and the bandages he was curious about it, and worried, but he would never admit that. He was in the teacher's lounge just staring at his hands. A show? What are you doing? Present, Mike asked, looking worriedly at his husband. Aizawa sighed. This morning Midoriya came in with his hand bandaged and kept checking his phone. Midnight started laughing. Of course you noticed something like that. Midnight doubled over laughing. Aizawa-sensei. Lunch rush, said Izuku, stopped and looked at his phone. What? Anyway, Lunch rush said you haven't gotten food yet. Izuku handed him his tray like normal. Thank you, Midoriya. No problem, sensei. He walked out and left. Now that Aizawa thought about it, he didn't know where the younger went to lunch either. Oh wow, you're right. Didn't think he actually did that. Present, Mike said. Exactly. Once school let out, Izuku was surprised to see Dabi at the gate. You actually came. Dabi smiled a little. Yeah, well, it's a little weird sitting in your house. What were the questions about from earlier? Dabi just shrugged. I have no idea what you're talking about. What? Dabi, don't be like that. Who's that with Midoriya? Midnight asked, looking out the window. That immediately got Aizawa's attention. He walked over to the window to see Izuku talking with someone likely around 18 or 19 with black hair and a few scars showing. I don't recognize him, Aizawa pointed out, though that made Midnight laugh while Present Mike just gasped. You don't know your own kid's friends? What kind of father are you? Aizawa rolled his eyes. For the last time, I'm not his dad. Midnight gasps this time. What if it's his boyfriend? Present Mike joined in this time. Really? You think Midoriya has a bad boy type? Can we please not talk about the types my student is into? Aizawa hit both of them. Come Uin, tell me. Izuku begged Dabi, making him smirk. Nope, you'll find out later. Izuku groaned as they finally arrived at the kids' school and waited for them. you're still here. Mina jumped out and attached herself onto Dabi's arm, making him jump at first but calm down once he realized who it was. Oh my god, you're so warm. She let go, starting to mess with the others again. Seems like they warmed up to you. Izuku teased and nudged him a little. Yeah, I guess. They made it to the gym and most of them were working out. Well, everyone except Shiro, Kaminari, Shinso, and Dabi. Izuku was using a punching bag with Haku holding it, Katsuki and Kirishima sparring, and Mina doing some stretches. Dabi was just watching them before he noticed something and stood up. Your stance is off, he pointed out to Katsuki. Huh? He walked over and kicked the other's foot a little before making him square his shoulders. There, now try it. Katsuki rolled his eyes but threw another punch at Kirishima. It seemed a little more powerful than before. Oh hell yeah. Dabi walked back over and leaned against the wall. I don't believe we've met yet. He jumped, not noticing someone there. My name's Sakura Kirishima. Dabi. Sakura nodded. I assume you know Midoriya then. Do you have any previous training? That mistake was hard for any of us to notice. Dabi wasn't sure how to answer that since he did. Yeah, a little. Sakura nodded. How would you like a job? Dabi almost fell in his shock and turned to her. Well, you're obviously well trained if you noticed that, and we could always use a little more help around here. Plus, if you're friends with Midoriya, then you're also accepting. Dabi was still in shock. You mock? Sakura smiled. Fantastic, you start tomorrow. She walked away to her wife who had finished helping Izuku. What the fuck just happened? Izuku was dying of laughter while Dabi rolled his eyes. Yeah, laugh it up, it's so funny. He calmed down and took a few breaths. Seriously, she just offered it to you. Dabi nodded his head. Yeah, really weird, but why did we leave the kid? He asked, remembering Shinso wasn't with them. Oh, he's gonna study at Kaken's house with the others. He'll be back later, Izuku explained, waving his hand dismissively. Okay. Izuku opened the door to the house. I also made dinner. His eyes widened as they made it to the kitchen. Holy crap. There was a large arrangement of food. Dabi, you made this. Dabi rubbed his neck a little awkwardly. Yummy, mom taught me a little when I was younger and you helped me, so you know. Izuku laughed a little before hugging the other, who was shocked and just stood there. Thanks, you really didn't have to. Yeah, well, whatever. The two sat down and started eating. A few hours later, Shinso joined them and reacted similarly to Izuku. Okay, so we have a guest room that you can use, that way you aren't sleeping on the couch. Izuku guided him to the room. It was a pretty plain room minus what looked like a few hand-sewn blankets. Thanks, you really didn't have to do this, you know. Izuku waved his hand a little. Nonsense. You needed help, so I helped you. Now get some sleep, you're probably tired. Izuku walked out of the room, leaving Dabi to sit silently on the bed. He looked around a little while feeling the soft blanket in his hand before falling back onto the bed and staring at the ceiling. Where are you going? Tauya turned to his sister. I can't fucking deal with this anymore, Fayumi. He's put all of us through hell. For what? Some stupid dream. He squeezed his eyes shut inside, turning onto his side. Maybe they'll believe me. Izuku woke up the next morning and started getting ready right away. He was supposed to work with Aizawa more on how to use his capture weapons correctly without getting tangled. He walked out into the hall, making sure to wake up Shinso. He looked in Dabi's room and saw the other asleep on top of the sheets, looking almost in pain. He scrunched his eyebrows and walked closer. He sat on the edge of the bed and heard Dabi mumbling something in his sleep. He didn't want to wake the other since he looked like he needed sleep, but it also looked painful. He knew when him or Shinso had nightmares that it was better to wake up than stay in it. He also knew that Dabi might accidentally burn him again. Dabi. He placed a hand on the other's shoulder. Wake up. It's just a dream. Almost like lightning, he shot up and grabbed Izuku's wrist with his quirk activated. It was the same wrist as before, so luckily it burned the bandages before him. Dabi. The other let go and seemed to snap out of it. Oh fuck. Shit, I'm so sorry. Fuck. Izuku smiled a little. It's okay. Just a small burn. Dabi didn't seem to believe him since Izuku was now hiding his hand. I'm gonna get ready for school. You can go back to sleep. Izuku quickly left and went to the bathroom, pulling out his first aid kit from middle school and started patching it up. Once he was done, he walked back to his room and changed into his usual morning clothes before going to the living room and seeing Shinso and Dabi already sitting on the couch. Rock and roll, buckaroos. Let's go. Shinso groaned. You're grounded from Hero Tube. Izuku gasped playfully. You can't ground me. I'm your older brother. Izuku saw Dabi at least smile, so that was a plus. Izuku made it to class on time with Aizawa laying in his sleeping bag on the floor. He figured the other was asleep and made his steps silent while he unpacked and mumbled quietly. I wonder if I should look into a vehicle. It would have to fit a few people if I wanted to bring the kids, but a van wouldn't be very nice. He pulled out a notebook and started writing down ideas, maybe something like a Jeep. Or I could go for something small like a skateboard. Maybe I could add stuff to it and make it faster or something. He started sketching out the idea. A longboard with a few added mods, maybe something that can make it like a scooter or a bike. He tried to think of how he could do that. If I use a bendable metal, it could work. Maybe I could make it attached to my shoes. Like skates. What are you doing, problem child? Aizawa asked, now standing up. Izuku jumped and laughed a little awkwardly. Well, I was thinking about something for transport. So for normal stuff, maybe like a jeep. But then I started thinking smaller, like a skateboard. But if I mowed it, I could make it like an attachment. Maybe even make them skates too. Aizawa looked at the blueprint. Fine, show it to Power Loader later. Aizawa's eyes drifted to his bandaged hand. Seeing more there than before, did you burn yourself again? Izuku looked down to his hand. Oh, yeah, I need to be more careful. Aizawa just hummed. Right, well come on. We got work to do. Izuku's burn irritated him a little. 1, because anytime Dabi saw it he would frown and be upset. 2, Aizawa seemed to be hyper-focused on it and not believe Izuku when he said it was from cooking. And 3, because his capture weapons rubbed on it weirdly. It didn't hurt any, but it wasn't fun either. He grabbed his lunch and the one lunch rush made for Aizawa like always and headed to the teacher's lounge. He pushed the door open with his foot inside. Aizawa-sensei, he paused, not seeing his teacher present. Mike-sensei. Where's Aizawa-sensei? The other looked up. He didn't tell you. Izuku shook his head and set the food down. He said he had a meeting with Netsu. Should be back later though. Izuku frowned a little. Oh, okay, Power Loader sensei. Can you look at a quick sketch? Sure thing, Midoriya. Hand it over. I don't know Netsu. Something's up with him. Netsu nodded his head. I definitely think something is going on. But I don't believe he's in danger. He would come to us if something was truly wrong, more specifically you. Aizawa rolled his eyes. Why does everyone keep pointing that out? I barely know anything about the kid. Then learned something about him. What? Netsu pulled out a few papers and organized them. Why don't you learn more? I'm sure if you asked he would tell you. Or you could look at his file from his other schools. Aizawa stared at him for a minute before offering his hand. Netsu placed the papers there with a smile. Fine, Midoriya. Aizawa called as Izuku walked into the classroom. What was your middle school like? Izuku was caught off guard and a flash of fear flickered in his eyes. Yumet Wasakui, do you ask? His arms went closer to his chest almost defensively. I was looking over your old files and some of the information doesn't line up. Izuku nodded slowly and was already looking at the ground. It says here you were a distraction in class, tried to start fights, bothered other kids, and didn't listen to teachers. Izuku felt like crying now. Do you mind telling me what really happened? I don't know, I'm sorry, I'll try to be better. Aizawa's eyes widened. No, Midoriya, just tell me what happened. Izuku mumbled something but Aizawa couldn't hear what. Why do you even care? Just look in that stupid file. Aizawa was shocked at the outburst, though Izuku seemed just as surprised as he gasped, I'm sorry, I need to leave. Aizawa stopped him. Midoriya, calm down. Izuku stopped moving for a moment. Tell me what's wrong, I'm not angry. Okay. Izuku looked up a little and Aizawa could already see the tears. Are you sure? Aizawa let a breath out and smiled a little. Promise. Now tell me what happened. The two sat down at Izuku's desk. It started when I was told I was quirkless. You, stay away from me. Izuku let tears run down his face as the other students ran away from him. Quirkless freak. Loser. No wonder he has no friends. He's always mumbling. It's creepy. And it got so much worse. He let out a wet laugh. I even protected other kids from bullies, but they bullied me too. And no one really cared. No teachers stopped it or anything. Then when I got into middle school, Izuku walked into class with his head down, avoiding everyone's eyes. He knew if he looked at them they might beat him up or something, and it was getting harder to hide it. He walked to his desk and paused. He saw new writing on his desk. He gave up trying to clean it a while ago. It was full of the usual freak, loser, and kill yourself. He sighed though when he saw the flowers on his desk, spider lilies. He heard his classmates snicker and start to whisper behind their hands as he moved the flowers to his bag where he kept them in a book. It turns out it was easier to keep them than throw them out. If I didn't keep them, it meant everything would be worse. He set his head down on one of his arms while the other laid there on the desk. During class they would throw things, insult me, or use their quirk on me ... and the teachers did nothing. Aizawa listened as Izuku continued talking about what happened to him, and Aizawa doesn't think he's ever felt so mad in his entire life. He wanted to kill whoever told Izuku those things and destroy the school itself. What kind of hero can't even stand up to their bullies? Aizawa snapped out of the murder thoughts and looked at Izuku confused. I've protected Toshi, Kirishima, and the others multiple times from people, but I couldn't even help myself. He still didn't meet Aizawa's eyes as he cried harder. Kid, it's okay. Aizawa put his hand in Izuku's hair to try and calm him down. I was bullied when I was younger too. Izuku's head perked up and he looked shocked. What? Yeah, people thought I was evil or had a villain's quirk, so I didn't have any friends really. Izuku just stared at him shocked. So it's okay. I didn't stand up for myself either. Aizawa wasn't expecting anything, so when Izuku suddenly tackled him into a hug he was confused before he hugged the other back. Aizawa burst into the teacher's lounge and glared at all of them. If anything were to happen to Midoriya, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself. He then walked out and slammed the door, leaving all the teachers confused while Present Mike and Midnight died laughing. Okay, if I do this then. Izuku tapped the top of his right foot on the ground once. When he did that, a metal skateboard appeared attached to both of his shoes. Yes. He disconnected his left foot to push off and start skating around. He was a little wobbly, but it worked. He tapped his foot again, making the board disappear. If that works, then so should this. He tapped his foot on the ground twice, making his shoes turn to roller blades. He skated around on these a little better. Okay. One more test. He made the wheels disappear before tapping his foot 3 times. Blades appeared on the bottom and he squealed while jumping up and down. Oh my god. Knife shoes. He made them disappear before he started messing with them more. Midoriya, what are you? Power Loader rushed in to see Izuku skating around on his rollerblades while freaking out. Oh, you did it, good job. Izuku smiled wide and nodded. I know, right? This is so cool. He shifted to the skateboard again and detached both feet so that he could hold it before putting it back on his feet. Can I show Aizawa-sensei? Izuku asked excitedly. Power Loader only nodded as Izuku rushed out of the classroom. He ran to the teacher's lounge and burst through the door, scaring everyone except for Aizawa, who already knew who it was. Aizawa-sensei, Aizawa-sensei, look what I made. Aizawa looked down and listened as Izuku explained his shoe attachments excitedly. Sounds good, kid. Nice job. He patted Izuku on the head, who smiled even wider. Thanks, Daide. Have a nice day. I have to go. Izuku then sprinted out of the room, leaving a stunned Aizawa and a laughing Midnight and Present Mike. Izuku made it back to the empty classroom and slammed the door before sinking to the floor. I can't believe I almost did that. Ugh, stupid. He groaned before standing up and walking around a little. Okay, doubt he noticed it. He looked at his phone and saw it was the end of the day. I'm sure he'll forget it by tomorrow, right. He grabbed his stuff and raced out of the school, heading towards where the others were. He knew Dabi wouldn't be there since he was supposed to be starting work at the dojo today. He almost called you Dad. Midnight cried out while laughing. Aizawa was still a little shocked but soon snapped out of it and glared at the papers in his hands. Shut up. Aizawa silently hoped that Izuku wouldn't be angry with him later. Izuku was sitting in the living room with Dabi and Shinso next to him. At the moment, Shinso was beating Dabi in a racing game while it rained heavily outside. Fuck you, you purple rat. Izuku was trying not to laugh as they threw insults at each other. Why don't you try sucking less, you burnt bitch? Now boys, play nice. Izuku smiled and waved at Inko, who had just walked in. Hi mom, how is work? Inko set her things down. It was good. Izuku nodded. Izuku ... Can you come into the kitchen? Izuku and Shinsu's eyes widened. He stood up from the couch and followed after her. Yeah, sure. Shinso watched them walk into the kitchen while Dabi passed him in the race. What's up with that? Dabi asked, realizing that Shinso wasn't paying attention. They only go into the kitchen if it's serious. They both looked to the doorway now, though they couldn't hear them. Wonder what happened? Dabi nodded his head as the two stood up and walked to the entrance and stayed silent while they listened. Mom, is everything okay? Izuku asked, his hand on the counter as he tried to get a read on his mom's mood. She didn't seem angry, but it had gotten harder to read his mom over the years. Izuku ... Are you okay? His eyes widened, though he quickly hid it and laughed a little. Of course, Mom. Why wouldn't I be? She finally turned around and he saw unshed tears in her eyes. Mom. She sighed and whipped her eyes. Izuku, were you being told to kill yourself at school? Izuku stood there frozen. Please tell me it didn't happen. And not that I wasn't a good enough mom. He snapped out of it and walked towards his mom. Mom, you're not. Tell me, Izuku. He flinched back at the loud voice, hoping she didn't see it, but she did. Oh my god. He looked down at the ground before looking back at her. Mom, it's not. She cut him off again. Izuku, you just flinched at me. Your teacher told me everything that happened. Izuku paused and looked at her. What? You were being bullied every day, being beaten up, told to go jump off a roof, and you never told me. Do you not trust me? Izuku felt his own tears stream down his face. That's not what happened. Your own teachers were against you. Izuku, I'm supposed to be there for you to stop this from happening. Stop. When he shouted that, it was like everything froze. This is why I didn't tell you. You would blame yourself when it wasn't you, Mom. He took a few breaths. It was me, okay. It was my own fault. I should have told you, I know, but he stopped talking. Though Inko waited for him to continue. I can't do this. He mumbled before turning around and running out of the kitchen. He grabbed his jacket that held his phone, headphones, key, and wallet before running out the front door. Izuku. All three of them yelled as he ran out into the rain. They all stood there shocked before Shinso turned to Inko. Mom ... Was it true? She still had tears running down her face as she nodded her head. Dabi looked between them before grabbing his own jacket. You stay here and comfort her, okay? I'll go find him. Shinso nodded and went to his mom as Dabi walked out and closed the door. He looked both ways before seeing Izuku turn down a different street. Midoriya. He chased after the other, though he wasn't sure if the other teen had even heard him. At some point Dabi lost him and was asking people if they had seen him. A few people had, and he was getting pretty far from the house. "Excuse me," he tapped on the person's shoulder. "Have you seen?" He stopped in his tracks and saw the woman's face. She had white hair with bits of red in it. She was wearing glasses and looked a little confused. "Yes, do you need something?" He was frozen for a moment before remembering that he had something he needed to do. "Yeah, have you seen someone maybe around my age with green hair, running somewhere?" Yes, I believe so. I think he went over to the forest." He nodded his head and went that direction before whispering, "Thanks, Fayumi." He heard her gasp, but didn't stay long enough for her to say anything else. He finally came to where there was a clearing in the woods and looked around a little before hearing the sounds of someone cry, "Midoriya." He walked over to where he heard it and saw Izuku sitting at the base of a tree with his legs pulled up to his chest and his headphones in. Dabi sighed and walked up to the other before leaning over him and blocking the rain that came through the trees. Izuku looked up with foggy eyes and confusion. "You'll get all wet," Dabi pointed out. Izuku smiled a little sadly at him. "So will you." The two looked at each other before Dabi spoke again. "What happened?" Izuku looked down and away a little. "I'm weak." Dabi was a little shocked but kept listening. "I can't even defend myself. I almost listened to all those people. Aizawa said it's okay, but it's not." "Idiot." Dabi put his other hand in Izuku's hair. "You're one of the strongest and kindest people I know, Midoriya." Izuku glared but didn't meet his eyes. "Then how come I never fought back?" Told Mom. Dabi crouched down to his level and they finally met eyes. Dabi could still see the tears streaming down his face. "'Cause you're too nice. You hoped they would be better. You didn't want to bother your mom with something you did think was important." Izuku looked down again. "Hell, you picked up some bleeding stranger in an alleyway." Izuku laughed a little at that and nudged his hand a little. "Well, the stranger seems pretty nice." Dabi chuckled and sat down next to Izuku. It was silent for a moment before Izuku leaned over and wrapped his arms around Dabi's neck in a hug. "Thank you." Dabi was frozen for a moment before wrapping his arms around Izuku's waist. "No problem, Midoriya." Izuku laughed a little and pulled away slightly. "You know you can call me Izuku, right? I think we're close enough for that now." Dabi looked to the ground before looking back to Izuku. "Then you should probably call me by my actual name." Izuku's eyes widened. "My name is Tauya Todoroki. My father's the number 2 hero." "What? You need to keep training, Tauya. I will not allow another failure in this family." Tauya stood up with shaky legs. His arms burned from the blue flames still lit. I want Todo stop." Endeavor turned around with a snarl and looked down at him. "What?" Tauya looked up with tears streaming down his face and a glare. "I said I want to stop. I don't want to be a fucking hero." Endeavor walked closer to him and snatched his burnt wrist, making Tauya cry out. "You will stop when you surpass me as my greatest creation yet." Tauya growled as Endeavor dragged him away. "That's how it always was." Dabi sighed, leaning against the tree as Izuku stared at him. "I either surpassed him or he would destroy me." Dabi looked at one of his burnt arms. "Guess I did that for him." Izuku placed a hand over Dabi's own as he continued. "You can't keep doing this, NJ. He's falling apart and he doesn't want to do this." Tauya stayed huddled close to the door as his mother shouted for Endeavor to leave him alone. "He will be the next number 1 hero, Ray. Now get out of my way." "No." It was silent for a moment before there was a loud noise and his mother crying out, "Mom." Tauya threw the door open and crouched down to his mom, who was cradling an already bruising cheek. "I am okay, Tauya." He didn't believe her, but he didn't have much of a choice as Endeavor grabbed him again and began dragging him away. For a while it was only Fayumi, Natsuo, and me, but when Endeavor realized I wouldn't listen to him without putting up a fight, he decided to have another kid, my little brother Shadow. "Don't you lay your fucking hands on him," Tauya shouted while shielding a shaking and crying Shadow. "Step out of the way." Tauya stiffed and glared. "Hell no. I'm not letting you touch him, old man. He's only 5, you psycho." Endeavor seemed to growl before grabbing onto Tauya's wrist again. Tauya yelled before lighting his arm on fire, forcing Endeavor to let go with a hiss. "I told you no." I tried to fight him off at every turn, but he always got to Shadow at some point. Dabi looked down, feeling tears come to his eyes. Izuku still hadn't said anything, but Dabi knew he was listening. "Mom, what do I do?" Tauya asked Ray one day. She seemed shocked by the question but turned to him with a smile. "You run, my little phoenix." He looked at her shocked. "You run until you can't stop and you get us help." She caressed his cheek lovingly. "Be our hero." "So I did what she said. I just left one night. Fayumi tried to stop me, but I still left. No explanation other than I was tired of it all. God, I left Shadow there. I left them all and fucking ran like a coward." Dabi held his hands over his eyes and leaned his head back against the tree. Izuku moved and kneeled in front of Dabi, pulling his hands back a little. "No, you didn't, Dabi. She told you to and you listened. She wanted you to find help and you did." Izuku smiled as Dabi looked at him again. "What do you mean?" "Really, Dabi? My mom has seen abuse cases before." "We all have. We already knew something was happening." He leaned back on his legs. "And now that we have a name and no people still live there, we can get them out." Dabi looked shocked before he lunged forward and hugged him. "Thank you. Thank you so much. Izuku hugged him back. Of course. Itoshi, am I a bad mother? Shinsu's eyes widened and he held onto Inko's arms. No, Mom, you're great. Izuku just ... He doesn't like to bother people with his problems. She laughed a little at that, and he could always blame any injuries and strange habits on training and stuff, right? So of course you didn't notice because he didn't want you to. She smiled and hugged Shinsu. Thank you, Itoshi. She let go and whipped her tears with a little laugh, and I guess you're right, but I'm signing him up for therapy. Shinsu laughed this time. Probably a good idea. The two sat on the couch and put on a move as they waited for Dabi and Izuku to get back. After maybe an hour, the front door burst open with a frantic Izuku and a panting Dabi. Mom, we gotta get custody of Dabi's siblings. Well, I guess just Shadow, since the other two are adults, so we can't really do that. We also should probably get Rei better help since she's in a mental hospital, and Ko cut him off. Izuku, honey, slow down and use your words. Izuku looked like he was trying to think of how to word it correctly, giving Dabi the chance to walk up to them. He had a hand on the back of his neck and sighed. My real name's Tauya Todoroki. Endeavor's abusive. My little brother still lives there. My mom's in a mental hospital after losing it because of the abuse, and I need your help. The two on the couch sat there shocked before Inko seemed to snap out of it. So when do we start? They came up with a plan pretty quickly. Talk to the police, get Dabi to talk about it to a social worker and officer, get proof, talk to the other siblings, talk to Rei, and finally get them out of Endeavor's custody. The only issue is that it would take a long time since they didn't want Endeavor finding out. I'll talk to them this weekend and explain the situation and plan. Then we'll bring you in, okay? Inko asked Dabi, who was just staring in shock at the thought-out plan. Yeah, that works. Izuku held onto one of his arms and smiled at him. If you're uncomfortable with doing it alone, we can have someone with you. Dabi nodded and put his face in his hands. Thank you all so much. Shinsu rolled his eyes. What did you expect? You told the one family who would kill an abuser that the number 2 hero was a shitbag. Dabi laughed a little at that. Guess you're right. Inko clapped her hand together and smiled. Okay, everyone to bed. You all have school and work tomorrow. Izuku and Shinsu left after saying good night. Though Inko stopped Dabi, if you ever need to talk to me or Izuku or Hitoshi. We'll always listen, okay? You're not alone. Dabi felt like crying after today, and that almost pushed it. He hugged her tight before whispering, thank you. Inko patted his back, and when he let go, she smirked. You're welcome. Now go to bed. I know you're walking with them in the morning, then heading to work. So go. Shoo shoo. He smiled and went to the guest room. Izuku woke up in the middle of the night from a nightmare, remembering being cornered in school and beaten to hell and back. He walked downstairs to the kitchen and grabbed a glass of water. He turned around and jumped when he saw the figure in the doorway. You scared me, Toshi. He laughed a little, walking over to his little brother. He was about to make another joke when he saw the tears running down his face. What's wrong? Luckily, he didn't need to lean down much since Shinsu was close to his height. Was all of that happening when you protected me? Izuku smiled a little sadly. Yeah, it's the reason I was covered in bandages all the time. Shinsu glared at the ground before punching Izuku in the stomach, making him double over for a moment. Don't do that again or I'll kick your ass, okay? Izuku smiled and hugged his brother. Promise. The next morning, the three were all running around to get ready while Dabi sat on the couch. He always felt awkward, but since he didn't need to get ready, he just sat around. Okay boys, have a good day at school and work. I'll be home later tonight, okay? Bye Mom. Love you. Inko walked out the door, but not before patting Dabi's head. The other two came down in their usual morning outfits. Okay, let's head out. You have work in a few, right? Izuku asked Dabi, who was heading to the door. Yeah, once you get to school, I'll head over there. Izuku nodded as they all headed off. Aizawa wouldn't admit it, but he was nervous. He had made great progress with Izuku, and it all might be set back with letting his mother know what happened in middle school. When Izuku walked in, Aizawa pretended to be asleep like normal. He honestly expected a glare or something, but when he saw the normal smile on Izuku's face, he was a little less worried. Aizawa-sensei. Aizawa peeked one eye open. Thank you for telling my mom what happened. Izuku wasn't facing him really, but Aizawa was glad he seemed okay. Of course, problem child. He stood up and walked over to the teen. Now come on, we have capture weapon training. Izuku beamed and hugged Aizawa before running off to change into his hero uniform, leaving a smiling Aizawa to follow behind him. Try again. Izuku threw his arm out, causing the capture weapon to lash out and wrap around the pole. He yanked down, slightly bending the metal before spinning around it. He twisted before letting it go and aiming a kick at Aizawa. It was a little too fast for Aizawa to dodge good. Izuku smirked, pulling out one of his escrima rods and sweeping Aizawa's feet out from under him. Aizawa flipped as Izuku switched to his gun and shot around, making Aizawa trip up and fall. Izuku used his capture weapon to wrap his arms to his sides. He dragged Aizawa to him before placing a foot on his chest and aiming the gun slightly off to the side, but making it look like it was aimed near his head. Better. Izuku smiled before letting Aizawa up. I want you to work on your style without your weapons. Don't need you relying on them too much. Oh, are we gonna work on hand-to-hand tomorrow then? Izuku asked excitedly, bouncing on the balls of his feet. Not exactly. Your last trip to the USJ didn't go as planned. Izuku laughed a little, thinking of the lecture he gave to Aizawa. So Nedzu suggested we work with the other class. Says it will help you feel like a normal student. Izuku grimaced a little. He had never even talked to any of the other students. He ran into Mirio-senpai, Tamaki-senpai, and Nejire-senpai a few times, but otherwise never really interacted with the other students. That sounds interesting. Aizawa side-eyed him as they entered the school. Izuku quickly changed back into his uniform before meeting back in the class. Stay here, I'll be back to give you more work. Izuku nodded as Aizawa left the room. He had been suspicious of the team they saw the first time Izuku came in with a burn. When he came in with a worse burn, the suspicion only grew. Then he started showing up and waiting for Izuku to get out of work. He noticed that the man got there about 15 or so minutes before school was over. He would stay away from the wall and simply stand under a tree messing with a phone. Walking out the front gate and looking around, he spotted the teen under the tree like normal. As quiet as possible, he snuck around and grappled into the tree. He crouched on one of the branches and watched him before finally speaking. Who are you? Jesus fuck. The teen fell over and looked at Aizawa shocked, trying to get his breathing back to normal. Well, hello to you too. Aizawa glared, using his capture weapon to catch the other and hang him from the tree. What the hell? Who are you? The teen stared at him a little confused before seeming to realize who he was. Wait, you're Aizawa, right? Izuku's teacher. He glared harder at the teen, who didn't seem to react that much. My name's Dabi. Why? That's a fake name. Obviously, but it's what everyone calls me. Why am I hanging from a tree? Aizawa let the weapon slack make him fall to the ground. He dropped down and crossed his arms. Are you physically harming my student? Dabi's eyes widened as he stood up, shifting slightly on his feet. Look, I know you won't believe me, and I really don't see why you should, but it was an accident. I don't know why he doesn't hold it against me or get angry, but he forgives me. I'm really sorry. Aizawa didn't show any signs of emotion as the other spoke. It was silent for a while before Aizawa sighed. Midoriya will be out soon. He left the other and walked back into the school where Izuku had finished packing up and was waiting for him to give the assignment. Izuku was more than nervous. He had of course seen some of the other students, but never actually talked to any of them. He walked towards the bus with Midnight and Aizawa in his costume. He had his mask up but kept his hood down and his hair tied up. He was messing with his hands a lot and typing away on his screen. Everything all right, Midoriya? You seem nervous. He jumped a little hearing Midnight. Oh, yeah, sorry. Just nervous. I don't really talk to or interact with any of the other students. Aizawa patted his head as they got closer to the bus, already hearing the noise. Don't worry about it, problem child. They're just annoyances. Izuku laughed a little. When Izuku stepped onto the bus, no one except Vlad King seemed to notice. He was glad that he had a habit of somehow blending in and being invisible. He walked to the back of the bus and continued messing with his computer, cataloging and going through the information he had gathered from the other students. Welcome to the unexpected simulation joint. 13 did the same explanation as the last time Izuku was here. He had assumed the other class hadn't trained here yet. He stayed mostly off to the side and it seemed like the others still didn't notice him. Midoriya, what is my number one rule? 13 asked. Everyone seemed to look around, not knowing who he was. Don't feel afraid to ask for help or ask questions. The class all jumped seeing him near the back. When did you get here? A male with light blue hair, pale skin, and a fish's tail yelled. He's been here since the bus. Pay more attention. Aizawa scolded, glaring at the class. I think we would have noticed him. A girl with white hair, greenish skin, and sharp claws said smugly while rolling her eyes. You didn't. We'll be doing more situational awareness training because of it. Vlad King said with a glare towards the class. Some of the students glared at Izuku, who pretended not to notice it. Okay, we're going to separate you into groups. We'll give you a number, and you'll be partnered with people with the same number and sent with a teacher. 13 explained as Midnight numbered them off. Izuku ended up getting a 3 and walked over to where he saw the others. The two from before were also in the group, making him sign internally a little. He could tell they weren't going to like him no matter what. Oh goody, we got parred with the ghost. The girl rolled her eyes and huffed. Lay off, Naomi. A girl with black hair, dark skin, and red nails said, slightly shoving the other aside. Nice to meet you, I'm Suzuki. She offered a hand with a large smile. Izuku took the hand and smiled back, though she couldn't see it because of the mask. Midoriya, if you don't mind me asking, what's your quirk? She smiled almost evilly before her hair started moving, the ends turning to snake heads and extending, one slithering around her arm. Snake hair. It's not super strong but useful, you know. Izuku brightened up and started using one hand to type the information into the computer. That's so cool. Do you know how far they stretch? Or how much weight they could lift? Suzuki smiled excitedly. She wore a red bodysuit with black armor covering her vital points, a whip at her side, and a black eye mask. Also, are you a fan of Midnight? Your outfits look similar. I am. She's so cool. And they can stretch for about 30 feet. I can lift your average person with them, but otherwise it starts to hurt. Was your outfit inspired by anyone? Izuku looked at his own and shook his head. No, not really. I wanted an outfit that would let me hide easily but not scare people. My little brother actually helped me plan it out. She gasped with stars in her eyes. Really? Do you have a picture of him? He pulled out his phone and started showing her pictures of him and the others, explaining who they were and how they all got along. Okay, everyone. I'll be your teacher. Midnight greeted, walking over to them. Izuku nudged Suzuki, who nudged him back. We're going to work over in that building over there. You'll have to get the dummies out of the building before it crashes down, okay? Let's go. The other male looked nervous while the other girl seemed to not care. Izuku was already thinking of plans on the best way to get them out. He didn't notice, but Suzuki was listening closely and adding in her own ideas. It had been going pretty okay so far. The other two didn't waste time and didn't even try to work together. Izuku was a little shocked when Suzuki worked with him. Midnight seemed happy they had been working together. They had also gotten the most people out so far. Would you two stop trying to impress her so much? God, it's annoying. The girl yelled at Izuku and Suzuki when they went back to the ground floor. What are you talking about, Naomi? We've just been doing what we're told. Suzuki defended. She seemed to find out pretty quickly that Izuku didn't like confrontation. As if, you two have been geeking out and annoying this entire time. The guy yelled at the two. Izuku glared and set the dummy down. We shouldn't be arguing. This is a training exercise, but it's still a dangerous area. He could practically feel the ground shifting under him and he had a bad feeling. Aizawa always told him to trust his instincts. Oh, shut it. Why should we listen to you? The girl yelled, shoving him. Suzuki growled and wrapped one of her snakes around the girl. Don't shove him. The girl slashed at the snake, making it let go. This time the guy shoved Izuku. It was strong enough to get him out of the ground floor and back outside. Guys, Izuku cut himself off, seeing the pillars crack along the sides. He ran back before using his capture weapons and wrapping it around the pillars. He felt them finally snap as he pulled them taut. Get out. He grunted out, feeling the weight pull on his arms and drag him forward a little. The girl seemed to notice and started running to the exit. The guy and Suzuki noticed too late though, as debris hit them and knocked them to the ground. He shifted his foot and tugged away from the building as hard as he could. He saw that the two still in the building weren't moving. Either they were knocked out or trapped. You. The girl looked at him with anger. I don't care how you feel about me, but they're in danger. Run back in there and get them. Why should I? He cut her off with a growl and a shout. Now. She paused in shock before nodding and running back. Using her claws, she cut through a piece of debris that was trapping Suzuki. She stood up and used her snakes to pick the man up before they all got out of the building. Once he knew they were out, he let his capture weapon come back to him and the building to crash to the ground. Midoriya. He fell to his knees, cradling one of his arms as Suzuki and Midnight ran over. Are you okay? Suzuki asked worriedly. He tried to nod his head but grunted when he pulled his other arm a little. What happened? Midnight crouched next to him and moved his jacket, getting a look at his arms. Both were now starting to bruise and showed signs of rug burn. Both shoulders had slight bruising, but his right was swelling more and looked worse. Let's get you to recovery, girl. Aizawa seemed to appear out of nowhere and helped Izuku up. Midnight, stay with them and figure out what happened. She nodded, already going over to the other two who looked pissed. Can I come? Please? It's partly my fault he's hurt. I want to make sure he's okay. Aizawa stared at her before sighing. Fine, come on. Izuku smiled at Suzuki, who smiled back and started talking more about her quirk to try and distract him from the pain. You dislocated your right shoulder, pulled your left, you have a small fracture on your wrist, and your arms are bruised and burned from the fabric. Recovery girl explained as she handed Aizawa the chart. I thought the fabric didn't burn. Aizawa stated he had never had a problem with it before. Normally they don't, but his are on his arms and aren't meant to be used to hold up a building from falling on 3 teenagers. Suzuki ducked a little. I'm really sorry. I would have gotten one of the teachers, but there wasn't time, and if I left, Izuku started mumbling as Aizawa sighed. Problem child. He stopped talking and looked at Aizawa. It's not your fault. You did the right thing. We just don't want you doing it again, understand? He nodded his head. Suzuki elbowed him in the side and smiled. Hey, at least you're a hero. You showed those too. Izuku nodded. I guess. What was their problem with me? He was used to some hate, but it was usually when people knew he was quirkless. They don't like being wrong or having to do extra training. Suzuki just shrugged her shoulders a little. None of the class do, really. They all think they're too good for it. You showed them we aren't, though. You held up a building. It was crazy. Are you okay, by the way? You got hit with debris, right? She nodded a little and showed a bruised ankle. I already had it looked at, though. Just bruised. Nothing serious. Izuku sighed in relief. You never told me your quirk, by the way. He flinched a little. That's because I'm quirkless." Suzuki stared at him with wide eyes. "You held up a building," he nodded, still looking down in slight fear. "Holy shit. You're so cool. How'd you do that?" He jumped, a little shocked at the Amazon in her voice. What do you mean? You're not disgusted or anything." She looked at him a little confused. "Why would I be? You just saved my life. You're literally the coolest." He smiled excitedly and started talking about how he knew it would work. Izuku got out of school and exchanged numbers with Suzuki. He was happy to have a friend at school. It also turned out she wasn't well liked in her class either. Recovery Girl had healed his wounds slightly, though she left the bruises and strained to heal on its own, so he would need to wear a shoulder brace for the week and not overwork himself more than he needed to. "Holy shit, are you okay?" Dabi asked as soon as he saw Izuku, grabbing his arms and looking them over for any more obvious damage. Sorta. Recovery Girl healed me as much as she could, but suggested letting the bruises and muscles fully heal on their own so I wasn't too drained. Dabi glared at him a little, but there wasn't any heat behind it. "What happened then?" "You have rug burns on your arms too." Izuku then explained what had happened at the USJ and how he got hurt. "I'll burn those assholes alive. They're lucky you're so nice." Izuku blushed a little and laughed. "It wasn't that bad. Besides, I won't be seeing them for a while probably. Aizawa-sensei was really angry at them." "Good. If they hadn't been so rude you wouldn't be hurt." Izuku laughed a little, making Dabi smile as they headed to the middle school. Izuku burst into the living room holding piles of old computers, metal, and pieces of glass. "What you got there?" Shinso asked, looking up from his phone. "A smoothie." Shinso laughed at him as he set everything down on the counter. "So I've been doing some research. The technology for this stuff has existed for a while, but no one uses it. Which is stupid really, but nevertheless." He pulled out his support items notebook and opened it, pointing to a detailed drawing of a visor, what looked like bones from the hand made out of metal, and a weird-looking watch. All of the information on it was coded so Shinso couldn't read it. Izuku had told him it was the alphabet shifted 2 to the left, put through binary, and then put through a different code he couldn't remember the name of. He was always surprised that Izuku could read it, but it made sense when he had nearly photographic memory. "What is it exactly?" Shinso always liked hearing him talk about different inventions that he made or came up with and how they worked. "The sunglass visor thing is pretty much what it looks like, except a few added details. It should be able to see infrared, in the dark, scan someone and tell you their current state. It should also hopefully connect to my mask and those too." He pointed to the other 2 drawings. "Sounds like a lot." "It is, but I should be able to do it. After all, I made these right." He tapped his heel once, making the skateboard appear. He slid slightly before making it disappear. The staff had agreed he could take those home since he made them. They were approved, and they weren't considered a weapon. "True, can I help?" Shinso asked. It had been a while since him and Izuku worked on something together. Ever since he got into UA, got a job, and met Dabi, they hadn't hung out alone for a while. "Of course. Here, I'll show you how to take apart the larger computer. We need its screen, motherboard, the RAM, and any other storage thingies." Izuku handed him a pair of gloves and tools, though Izuku didn't wear any gloves, which explained the small scars he had. "How come I have to wear gloves?" Shinso asked with a small frown. Izuku rolled his eyes and nudged him. "'Cause I'm a good older brother. Now let's get to work." They had gone through the computer pretty quickly, getting anything of value and useful out before Izuku started tearing the metal apart. They mostly talked about school and things the other had missed or drama. "You should have seen it. Mina can be scary when she wants." Izuku chuckled at the story. "I think Denki almost passed out though. He's lucky I caught him or he would have bashed his head open." Izuku smirked as he pried the casing off of a phone. "Speaking of the group, you like any of them?" Shinso dropped the tool he was holding and stared at Izuku, who was smiling like an evil cat. "You, stop that." Izuku laughed a little. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Toshi. I haven't done anything." Shinso glared and picked the tool back up. "But you will. The moment you even think I like one of them, you're gonna interrogate and threaten them." Izuku gasped. "I would do no such thing. I would interrogate and threaten both or all of you." Shinso rolled his eyes and threw a screw at Izuku, who dodged. "Oh right. I have a shift later. Do you want to come with? You can work on school work while I help people." "You sure? Won't your boss be angry?" Shinso wasn't opposed to the idea. None of them had actually been to where he worked before. "Nah, she's really nice. I'm sure she'd love to meet you." "Fine, as long as it doesn't get you in trouble." They had finished the casing for the outside of the visor and a few other things for the added pieces when it was time for Izuku to go in. Shinso packed a small bag for his things so he had something to do while Izuku worked. "Midoriya, glad you could make it." Mayumi sent a smile to Shinso. "This your little brother, right? I definitely see the resemblance." She joked, pointing to their hair. "Very funny." He nudged her as he went to the back and changed into his uniform. "He's just coming to work to hang out is all." "Nice. Sibling bonding is always good." "I'll go ahead and head out then. We've been slow today, only a couple of people, so I wouldn't worry too much." She went to the back and changed into her own clothes before leaving the cafe. Shinso sat at the counter and started finishing the homework he had gotten while Izuku whipped down the tables and helped a few patrons there. Senpai. Izuku turned and saw Gyro and Yamomo walking in and sitting a chair away from Shinso at the counter. Hey, how are you guys doing? I haven't seen you in a while. The two girls had been coming in a little more often ever since he helped them with schoolwork, though more recently they hadn't been around. Sorry about that. I've been trying to train more and Yamomo was helping me. Shinso perked up at the new people a little and looked between the three. Really? What have you been learning? He set tea in front of Yamomo, a soda in front of Gyro, and topped Shinso's coffee off. We don't wish to distract you from customers, senpai. It can wait. Izuku looked confused. There wasn't anyone else in the cafe besides them at the moment. He locked eyes with Shinso and laughed a little. This is my little brother Shinso. He's not really a customer, he explained. Both girls looked shocked and looked between the two. You don't really look alike, Gyro pointed out. Shinso smirked a little. He could tell she was fun. Adopted actually. He stared at Gyro for a minute. You like MCR, don't you? She crossed her arms. Maybe. What's it to you, purple? Oh ouch, I'm so offended. Other teen with purple hair. Yamomo looked confused before she spoke up. It's a pleasure to meet you, Shinso. She turned back to Izuku. We mostly train at our homes, but have been looking for somewhere to learn more. You could train where we go. Shinso shrugged his shoulders a little. They're affordable and teach a lot. Izuku's been going there for a while, and after I moved in I started going there with some friends. Really? What's it called? Gyro asked. About to search the place up, Izuku walked over to the patron that had walked in and got their order. I'll bring that right out. He went to the kitchen area and made the coffee and brought out a cinnamon roll, giving it to the customer before going back to the group at the front. You go to UA? Yamomo asked, a little shocked. Yep, class 1A. Dude, that's so hard to get into. Nice job. Gyro complimented. Thanks. Are you guys shooting for UA then? Yes, I'm recommended actually, and Kyoka wishes to go through the normal process. Izuku smiled. Well, I don't know much about the recommended, but I'm sure you'll do amazing either way. And if you want to train at our place, our friends' moms own the place. And what is Dabi exactly? Shinso asked, looking at Izuku. Well, lives with us, and I'm pretty sure mom adopted him, but I don't really see him as a brother. So like your boyfriend? Gyro asked with a smirk. Izuku blushed and whipped around to her. What? Shinso started laughing and almost fell over. If Yamomo hadn't caught him. He isn't my boyfriend, Gyro. You sure? Cause we've heard you talk about him a lot. She's got a point, Izuku. Is there something you're not telling me? Izuku glared at both of the purple-haired teens while Yamomo giggled. Both of you stop that. I will poison your drinks. That didn't stop the group from laughing as Izuku rolled his eyes. It was getting later into the night, meaning only Izuku and Shinso were left in the cafe. Shinso scribbled something on his notebook while Izuku finished cleaning the area. When the door opened though, Shinso looked up with wide eyes, seeing Aizawa standing there. Oh, hi Aizawa-sensei. Usual right. The teacher nodded as Izuku began preparing his order. Holy shit, Shinso whispered. Though it was loud enough to get Aizawa's attention, he looked at the other for a moment before speaking. Shinso Itoshi, right? Shinso nodded, still a little shocked that the hero was there. How are the Midoriyas treating you? Aizawa knew that the other wasn't in danger, but he had also learned that Shinso was a huge fan of his. Yeah, Izuku and mom are great. Aizawa nodded. You also plan on becoming an underground hero? Shinso nodded again. If you're not working for it, give up. Shinso glared a little. Of course I'm working for it. He growled a little, though Aizawa only smirked. Good, you have some potential then. Izuku handed him the coffee and a small bag. Have a good patrol, Aizawa-sensei. The teacher left the two. Shinso looked to Izuku confused. He told me if I wasn't working to be an underground hero then to give up. Then said I had some potential when I did work for it. Izuku chuckled and nodded his head. That's a compliment, Toshi. It means he thinks you can do it. Izuku explained. He had been hanging around Aizawa enough to know when he was complimenting someone, giving advice, or telling them something was wrong. That was a compliment, Shinso asked with a small laugh. Yeah, he's like that. We should head home though, don't want to be out too late. When they did finally get home, Inko had already gone to bed, sending them goodnight texts. Hey, you losers finally got back. Dabi greeted them from the kitchen, drinking tea at the counter. Shut up, you burnt bitch. Shinso threw one of his socks at Dabi, who dodged before throwing a slipper back. I'm gonna head to bed. Your schedule is tiring. Izuku nodded and watched the other leave before getting a glass of water. Shouldn't you be going to bed? Dabi asked. He could see the eye bags under Izuku's eyes more prominently now. Probably in a minute, not really tired. He shrugged a little, leaning against the counter. I seriously don't get how. The kid just followed you around and he looks worn out. He didn't even do any of your school, work, or training. Izuku huffed a little. Yeah, he set the cup down and smiled at Dabi. How was work, by the way? Pretty normal. Fucking Brad is a piece of shit though. Izuku laughed, knowing who he was talking about, but he's not terrible. The others are getting good, but Lightning McQueen could use a little more work, especially with his quirk. He nodded. Hopefully they would be able to help him so he could be a good hero. Maybe I should see if I can help. I think I've analyzed his quirk before. He tried to think of what notebook it might have been in. Here, let's move to the living room at least. Dabi nudged him towards the exit before Izuku went on his own. They sat on the couch and turned the TV on for background noise as Izuku mumbled quietly about what he could remember. Dabi listened silently as he talked. He could understand most of what he was saying at least. Oh sorry, didn't mean to do that. He held a hand over his mouth before Dabi moved it. Don't stop, I was listening. He looked at Izuku's arms and saw the bruising had gone down but they were still slightly red. Still can't believe you literally stopped a building from falling on 3 kids. Izuku laughed a little. Yeah, it was terrifying honestly. Dabi looked at him a little confused. If it hadn't worked they could have gotten really hurt or even die. I knew what I was preparing for when I got old enough to understand what being a hero meant. But it was still scary, you know. Not really. I've only had to protect my siblings and mom, but I kinda do. Izuku smiled and hugged the other. Thank you for listening to me. Dabi wrapped his arms around the other's waist. Course, gotta repay you somehow. Izuku pushed away a little but kept his hands on his shoulders. Dabi, you really don't. Dabi rolled his eyes with a smirk. I will anyway. Shinso woke up and blinked a few times trying to get his bearings as he sat up. Normally he would take a minute and just stare at the ceiling, but the group had wanted to go hang out today before school started Monday. He rubbed his eyes a little before grabbing his phone. He flinched back at the brightness before looking at the time. It was around 11 a.m. so it was still a little early for him. They had wanted to meet at his place since Katsuki lived nearby and they had a somewhat big house even though the Bakugas was way bigger. Standing up he grabbed new clothes and his phone before going into the bathroom and starting a shower with music playing from his phone. After a while he got out and changed before going downstairs. He had figured Izuku was already up since the other liked to wake up early and do workouts, though he wasn't sure about Dabi. He hadn't seen the other up unless Izuku woke him up or if he hadn't slept like Shinso sometimes. He walked into the kitchen and started the coffee machine before walking out into the living room. He was expecting maybe Izuku to be there if he had just gotten back, but he wasn't expecting this. On the couch was Izuku and Dabi, both still asleep. Dabi had his back against the couch with an arm thrown over Izuku's waist and the other being used as a pillow for the two while Izuku had his arms curled up in front of him and his head ducked under Dabi's chin. He tried not to laugh as he took a few pictures before walking over to the front of the couch and poked Izuku in the back. Izuku, get up, he whispered. He didn't want to wake up Dabi because it would be so much funnier if it was Izuku. The other groaned but didn't make a move. Izuku. He kicked the other this time making him jump. Though, what was he cut himself off when he saw where he was? He blushed before falling off the couch. Shinso broke down laughing at that as Dabi shifted a little before sitting up with a glare. What the hell? Izuku stood up and waved his hands a little. And nothing. Shinso kept laughing and fell on the ground trying to catch his breath. Toshi. Shinso laughed louder as Izuku tried to wrestle the phone from him. Finally catching his breath he stood up and smiled at Izuku's glare. Nope. These are mine now. Blackmail purposes. Izuku growled a little before chasing after Shinso throughout the living room as Dabi rubbed at his eyes. Jesus. Dabi stood up and ignored the two running around, going straight to the coffee and pouring himself a cup, adding sugar and creamer to it. You can't run forever. I know where you live. We live together, dumbass. The two kept fighting as the front door opened and Katsuki walked in. He took one look at the siblings before joining Dabi in the kitchen and getting water. The fuck they doing, you overgrown rakin'? Katsuki asked as he watched the two fight. Though it was obvious neither were really trying. I have no fucking clue, Sparky Boom Boom Man, Katsuki growled but went back to watching them. When it came to Dabi, Shinso, and Katsuki they all came up with nicknames for each other, though it was usually insults more than anything. Wait, why the hell are you here? Katsuki pointed to Shinso before making a few hand gestures. Dabi recognized it as the symbols for the other brats. Izuku had been teaching him signs since almost all of them knew it, though the Bakugas and the Midoriyas were all fluent in it. Why not just at the gym? I don't fucking know, man. The extras just said it sounded fun. Dabi hummed a little before smirking. It has nothing to do with someone at all, right? Bakugo blushed and kicked Dabi with a growl. Shut the fuck up. Dabi only kicked him back as the two finally stopped fighting on the floor. Fine, you win. What do you want? Shinso cackled evilly before smirking. I don't know. I think I'll hold on to this for something good. Izuku glared and thought about tackling him again but decided against it at the last second. You're the worst. I know it keeps me up at night. Shinso brushed himself off and turned to the other two. Oh look who's early. Lava girl. Katsuki glared at him. Shut it, brain freak. The two glared at each other before Shinso got coffee and sat next to him in silence. Kakin, when did you get here? Izuku asked. He grabbed an energy drink rather than anything else. He had found a new liking for the drinks. When you and Purple Fuck were fighting, the hell was that about Deku? Izuku blushed again and almost choked. Nothing. Shinso smirked and showed the picture to Katsuki, who immediately started laughing hysterically. Can I see? Dabi asked, feeling a little left out of the joke. Nope, it's nothing. What are you doing here, Kaken? Izuku quickly changed the subject, though he could tell Dabi wouldn't let it go anytime soon. The losers wanted to hang out and decided this was the fucking place to do it. Really, I figured they would go with your place, it's bigger. He shrugged his shoulders a little as Katsuki rolled his eyes. You think they have a fucking thought process? It's probably because they've never been to this shitty place. Izuku knew he wasn't actually calling the house shitty since it was just how he talked. I never thought about that. They really have never been here. He remembered when Katsuki and him would have sleepovers at each other's places, and Shinso got added to the mix. The group had all stayed over at Katsuki's a couple of times and even once at Kirishima's, but never here. Do you want us to get stuff? We need groceries anyway, Izuku suggested. Plus he knew if they did go he would likely leave Katsuki and Shinso here since they weren't exactly one for crowds. Shinso got bad anxiety in them and Katsuki sometimes got overwhelmed since it was hard to focus on hearing people correctly. You sure? I don't want to make you go there by yourself. Though Izuku tended to be better with the crowds, if he was by himself he would panic a little since no one was there to trump his own anxiety. I'll come with, got nothing better to do. Dabi shrugged his shoulders a little. That was when Izuku realized something. Oh my god, did we ever get you clothes? Izuku asked, a little shocked. He remembered when they had washed the clothes he was wearing and he had changed into borrowed old ones from his father, but otherwise he hadn't remembered ever getting the other clothes. Oh shit. Katsuki and Shinso started laughing at the duo as they had realized. They never got him other clothes. Yeah, we'll go ahead and get groceries and your clothes then. Izuku laughed a little as he went upstairs to change. Dabi watched him leave before looking at the two younger teens. Tell me why you were laughing. Izuku was looking at the clothing stores near them as they walked. He knew of a few but he didn't really know Dabi's style or aesthetic. Izuku always went for more soft boy as Mina called it, or should be illegal by Kaminari, who was then punched by both Katsuki and Shinso. What clothes do you like? Dabi seemed to snap out of a dream. What? Izuku laughed a little. What do you like to wear? Dabi got a weird look on his face. Clothes? Izuku stared at him for a moment before breaking down in laughter as Dabi blushed. Well, I don't know. It took a moment for Izuku to calm down, but once he did he showed him some pictures of the clothing stores. Well, you seem to like black and blue would look good on you. Maybe some dark reds? Izuku listed off a few more things as Dabi just scrolled through the pictures. Sounds fine to me. Maybe more blacks though. Izuku nodded as they made it to the first store. Let's get you sweatpants for sure. They're really comfortable, and some hoodies too. Izuku was making a small list in his head as they looked around the store. Every now and again Dabi would take the clothes and try them on. So far he had only kept the sweats they grabbed, cargo pants, a few baggy shirts, and a few jackets and hoodies. Izuku had noticed the pattern of not getting anything form-fitting or tight. Dabi, how come you mostly like the baggier clothes? Dabi paused and looked at him. You don't have to answer. I know it could be a personal thing and I didn't mean to pry. Dabi smiled and little. It's fine, it's just more comfortable, doesn't irritate the burns. Izuku paused and stared at the other. Half the time when they were talking or hanging out Izuku didn't really notice them. Of course he knew they were there but he often forgot about them. I didn't even think about that. Dabi jumped a little at the loud volume before Izuku quieted down. Do you want to look for something that would cool them down or relieve some of the pain? Do they hurt a lot? Is that jacket comfortable then? Should we get more sweats then? Does Dabi cut him off with a laugh? Izuku, it's fine, this is already more than enough. Izuku frowned a little. Well, we'll get more clothes still. Let's head to the grocery store. They finally made it back to the house and Izuku saw that Inko had made it home earlier and the others were already here. Senpai, Shiro called as he ran out to help them with the bags. We should have been here before. Your mom is so nice. Izuku laughed a little. Yeah, she's the best. Shiro stared at Dabi for a second, getting a confused look from Dabi. Can I help you? So you do live with them? Yes. The three walked up to the house as Dabi looked to Izuku for an answer, who only shrugged a little, at least until they made it inside and Shiro shouted, Denki, you owe me 2,000 yen. Damn it. Izuku set the bags down while Dabi just looked at the sea of children. Why couldn't you just be a homeless raccoon that hangs around for food? Izuku almost fell on the floor laughing. Why is everyone calling me a raccoon today? Inko came out of the kitchen chuckling a little before patting his face. It's all right, Dabi. You are a handsome raccoon. It's nice to have you around. Thanks. He set the bags down and sat on the couch, almost collapsing onto it. Jesus, I hated that. There was so much. What's he talking about? Mina asked as Izuku moved Dabi's legs and sat down before putting them on his lap. We got him clothes when we got groceries. He is not that fashionably inclined. Mina laughed a little before going back to the game they were all playing. It looked like a card game. No, Kiri would make a great stripper. Both Izuku and Dabi jolted up and stared at the group. Really, I think he would make good security. I think Denks falls into the stripper role well. Izuku burst out laughing while Dabi looked mildly concerned about the conversation. Dabi, can you follow me to the kitchen? Inko asked, tapping the boy on the shoulder. He nodded hesitantly before following her to the kitchen. Is everything all right? I told Izuku the clothes were too much already. Inko shook her head. It's not about that, sweetheart. I just wanted to prepare you. Dabi's eyes widened a little in panic before she reassured him it's nothing bad. I was able to get into contact with an old friend of mine. He's a detective and he wants to take on your case. He paused and brought a hand to his mouth. So I may get to see them again, right? He didn't want to get his hopes up, but he had missed his siblings and mom. Yes, he'll be working with another hero, a good one, and they'll do everything in their power to get your mother out and your siblings safe, especially your younger brother. He's still at the house, but we're hoping to change that soon. Dabi stood there in shock before pulling her into a hug. Thank you so much. She patted his back before pulling away. Of course, oh honey, you're bleeding. He felt his face and felt blood coming from his eyes. Fuck, sorry. She handed him some paper towel. Sometimes when I cry it bleeds instead. Tear ducts got a little fucked up. She patted his shoulder. It's alright. Once we get this officially started, I'm taking you to the hospital. We'll see what we can do about these burns, okay? Some of it will always be there, but I'm sure we can help a little. Jesus, you people are too nice. Inko only smiled and led him back out where the group were still playing, with Izuku joining in about a weird conversation. Okay, but no, if you look at it. That doesn't make sense. Dabi fell onto the couch next to Izuku, who turned to him. Everything okay? Dabi let out a huff and smiled. Yeah, everything's perfect. Izuku smiled and rubbed his arm before going back to the argument. Dabi watched them, still smiling. He hoped his siblings would get to meet these people and help them like they helped him. Izuku bounced on the balls of his feet nervously as he messed with his hands, cracking them every now and again. He had already gone through his plan in his head. He was the only student in Class 1 and that was bound to draw attention for sure. He also knew that when President Mike was announcing him as the class, he would also mention that he was quirkless. He had asked him to say it after all. Kid. Izuku turned to Aizawa with a smile. Since you're the only student in WHAT, we normally don't specify quirks in the intros. Do you want Mike to say you're quirkless? Izuku thought about it for a minute. He had originally planned on laying low, but if he was being announced separately it would be difficult. Sure. Aizawa seemed a little surprised at the answer. Normally when people hear I'm quirkless they assume weak, dumb, slow, stuff like that. If they underestimate me then they'll lose faster. Aizawa smiled and ruffled his hair. Smart. Good luck, kid. If you lose we're doubling down on your training. Izuku nodded and started stretching. He had been waiting to be announced. He was mostly anxious about everyone staring at him. He had gotten used to talking and being around strangers thanks to the gym, kids, and his job, but other things still made him nervous, such as really big crowds. And now, Class 1A, that only has one student. At that he walked out with a small smile, trying to keep the small bounce in his step. Midoriya Izuku. UAS quirkless wonder. Izuku faltered a little. He was not expecting that last part. He could practically hear his own heartbeat as the stadium got quiet. Until President Mike began talking again. He could hear people whispering still though. There's only him. But he's quirkless. He'll probably lose. I hope he doesn't get to hurt. He ignored them as he watched the other students walk out, clapping and cheering when he saw Suzuki. Once everyone was announced and told to meet in the middle, they immediately joined up. She glared at anyone that gave them funny looks while Izuku looked at anyone's quirk and tried to analyze them as soon as possible. We're going to jump right into the festival. Be prepared, everyone. Midnight yelled as the screen lit up with the first round laser dodgeball. The large group of students were shown to a large arena-like room. The entire room was dark, but they could see large, small, and wide boxes everywhere. There were random walls with holes through them that you could see through and likely fit your arm through. In this room you'll see obstacles that you can use to your liking. Suddenly lasers of different colors turned on, some moving, some appearing and disappearing, and others staying still. You'll all get one dodgeball. When the time starts you'll have 30 minutes to collect points from other people. Each person you get out is worth 10 points. If you catch a ball, neither person is out. By the end you need to be holding a ball or you're eliminated. Good luck, everyone. They were all given a ball that was roughly the size of Izuku's hand. They had a moment before the timer started and Izuku could feel eyes on him. He tried not to focus on them as he watched the lasers. There was a pattern to all of them. All of the blue and purple ones stayed still, the green ones appeared and disappeared, and the red ones moved. It looked like the green ones were set to a specific timer, which made sense for a program if no one was controlling them. But he was worried about the purple ones. It didn't make sense to have two stationary lasers. He also noted that since the red ones moved while the blue stayed still, it might be a hint. I'm going after him first. Yeah, easy points, right? He smirked little. His plan was working after all. Begin. Izuku scanned the area before sprinting to one of the walls. He jumped over it. He threw his ball in midair and took the person hiding out. He rolled and picked his ball back up while taking the person's as they walked out of the area with the help of a teacher. He ducked behind the wall and looked through the holes. He could see people still having trouble even getting around the lasers. He watched as someone got close to the purple ones. As soon as they were within a few inches, it moved towards them and hit them, getting them out. So his theory had been right. He looked around the edge of the wall and saw someone looking around. Taking his chance, he leapt over the wall before twisting and hitting them with one of the dodgeballs. They groaned as they tossed their ball to him. He caught it and went back behind the wall, putting it with his other one. He knew some of the people were still gunning for him, especially if they saw the two he took down. So far it looked like a little over half the students had been taken out already. He assumed that if he took someone down he wouldn't gain their collected points, just the original 10. And if the two he took down had high points, then it would dwindle them down. He grabbed his extras before jumping over the wall. He saw two people out in the open and quickly hit them before flipping over some of the lasers and landing on a platform. He ducked under a ball before jumping down. He rolled under one of the red lasers before ducking behind another wall. 10 minutes left. Izuku's eyes widened a little. He hadn't expected it to get so close. Taking a deep breath in, he jumped over the wall and dodged the lasers. He was hoping someone would try to hit him. When a ball came at him, he smirked as he jumped and twisted in the air. He kicked at it, making it fly back to the sender and get them out. An amazing move. Since he technically caught it and sent it, he's still in. He smiled as he landed before having to jump again when a purple laser came his way. When he landed, he didn't get long before he jumped back, landing on his hands and pushing off again. His feet landed on one of the walls and he pushed off before rolling and landing behind a platform. He turned and caught a ball. He looked at it before spinning a little and throwing it right back at the other, getting them out. Time's up. Izuku was glad to see that Suzuki made it. He waved over to her before they met up where the other students were. Hey Mido, what you get? I think 60. Suzuki looked at him with shock. What? Midoriya, I barely got 20. Izuku looked at her with wide eyes. Oh, yaho, Jesus man. If I had known you were such a badass, I would have teamed with you. Izuku laughed a little and rubbed the back of his neck. Sorry. She rolled her eyes and elbowed him a little. Good job everyone. For the points, it looks like first is Izuku Midoriya with 60 points. He felt the eyes on him again and people began to whisper, the next round you'll get into pairs and teams. Go ahead and do that. Suzuki and Izuku didn't even move, knowing that since they were paired no one would want to be paired with him. Good. Your points will carry over and be added with your teammates. The screen lit up again and Izuku felt like cheering Paintball. They were given the choice between 3 guns, a Glock, a sniper rifle, and an automatic. Each team needed at least one of them. Suzuki went with the automatic since she didn't really know how to use or aim the others well. Izuku automatically grabbed the Glock before also grabbing the rifle. He had been working on using a rifle to add pieces to his gun so he could have a distance advantage. Where should we go? Suzuki asked as they looked around. The area was just a large forest with a lot of trees and what looked like a cliff edge. Follow me. He had trained in areas like these with his capture weapon and his guns. They ran deep into the forest and climbed into some of the trees. Sitting in the branches, we'll want to stay up in the air and out of sight as much as possible. The moment anyone sees us, we're screwed. He made sure both of his guns were loaded before he scanned the area. All the teams had different colors. They had gone with a light blue so no one would think it was them who was taking people down. If you hit someone, then a teacher would get them and bring them back to the arena. The colors were so they knew which team took them down and so they could add up points easier. Mido, I am so fucking glad we are friends. Izuku laughed a little. He scanned the area again and saw a team of 4. Suzuki, he whispered, pointing to them. They could at least get 2 if she was bad at aiming, but it would still be half their team. As quietly as possible, Izuku aimed the Glock at the obvious leader while Suzuki aimed at the one behind them. They waited a few seconds before Izuku fired. Hitting the leader, he heard Suzuki fire and saw it hit the other teen as he quickly aimed at another and hit them. He had expected the 4th person to run, but they only seemed to panic, letting Suzuki get another shot in. Hell yeah, she cheered quietly as Izuku tried to think of how many points they now had. They moved throughout the trees as quietly as they could, with Suzuki using her snakes to swing through them while Izuku would jump and use the branches to move. They had been racking up points as they went, taking out team after team. When they weren't shooting, Izuku was showing Suzuki how to aim properly or how to use the sniper rifle. Ammo drop. Izuku looked up as a drone flew overhead and dropped a crate of paintball ammo. Should we stop? Suzuki asked since they were close by. Izuku smiled as they jumped down and grabbed their own ammo. Before they left though, Izuku looked at the crate and smirked. How much do you think we could carry? The group cheered as they saw Izuku kick the dodgeball back to its sender. Inko simply clapped with the crowd as the kids all shook each other. That's how you deal with fucking extras. Bakugo shouted as he jumped up and high-fived Shinso. Senpai's the best. So manly. WOOL. Dabi laughed at the excited teens screaming. Jesus, y'all get hyped, don't you? He asked teasingly as Shinso glared at him. Shut up. Zero smirked and leaned over to Dabi. At least we don't drool when he's working out. The others laughed while Dabi shoved Zero off the couch. They can't even see him. That's so cool, Kaminari shouted as they saw another team get taken out by a light blue paintball. He's gotta teach me that sometime. They watched as the camera got a small glimpse of Izuku swinging between the branches. When they heard the ammo announcement, they were a little shocked to see Izuku and his teammate taking all of the ammo they could carry. What are they doing? Kirishima asked, a little confused, while Inko smiled proudly. My baby's being smart. The group looked to her, some getting it while the others were still confused. If they take all the ammo, how can they lose? Dabi smiled a little proudly as they left the area, leaving the teams nothing. Izuku helped Suzuki back into the trees as they hid the ammo in the hollow parts and the leaves. Okay, when they come this way, we just fire. Don't worry about anything other than getting the others out. I'm gonna be over there so it's harder for them to know where we are exactly. We got this. Izuku smiled and nodded as he moved over to the other side of the clearing. They waited silently as some people came into the area. The groups seemed to form a sort of truce to get ammo, but when there wasn't any ammo, they aimed at each other, yelling. This was a good thing. It would save them the extra ammo to take them down. What they weren't expecting was another team to appear and take out both teams before they could even react. This is getting laughably easy, the leader spoke as he walked past the annoyed students. It's a little sad. Surprised the Quirkless bitch isn't out yet. Izuku glared a little at the name as he aimed for that person. And if he shot where it would hurt more than normal, no one would know. Shut up. We all saw him in that first round. I'd be careful, isn't that right? The leader looked straight to where Izuku was. He didn't move, only shifting his eyesight a little. You know you can come out now. We already know both of you are here. Suzuki looked to him for a moment before Izuku nodded and they both fell to the ground. Guns still trained on the team, though none of them seemed bothered by it. What's this all about? Suzuki was the one to speak up while Izuku studied them, trying to figure out what their quirks were. Well, seeing as I'm the team's leader, I just wanted to chat with the reigning champions so far. Izuku shifted back a little. Something seemed off about the other, at least until we take you out. What makes you so confident? Izuku asked, giving a small signal for Suzuki to back up slowly and into the trees while he had the team's focus. Why shouldn't I be? Izuku noticed he was talking about himself, not the team, so he didn't plan on keeping them around long. You, he pointed to the person next to the leader, have advanced senses. It's how you knew we were in the trees in the first place. You, he pointed to the girl in the back, have a quirk that allows you to see trajectory lines. Saw you use it during dodgeball. You, he looked to the one who called him a bitch, have a mutation quirk that makes you look like a mouse. I assume it also lets you use your tail at free will and claws. The three seemed shocked. He figured it out. Really? And what about me? Izuku smirked. I have a few theories. It was silent for a moment until Izuku and Suzuki opened fire on the other three group members. They all seemed shocked to be hit. Izuku turned and fired once at the leader, only for it to bounce off and force him to dodge. That was one of them. The leader smirked as the group members got up covered in paint. Asshole, you said you'd protect us. I said if you weren't dead weight. But with these two you'll only be in the way. The three were led away from clearing as Izuku kept his gun trained on the leader. Not sure why you're still aiming. You know it won't work. Izuku smiled a little. Maybe, but second time's the charm. The two stared each other down as Suzuki looked nervously between them. And Mido, he looked at her for a moment. I can't do this. You're on your own. She turned and ran from them into the woods. Izuku watched her in shock before looking back at the leader. Well, that was a little sad. She was interesting for the moment at least. He turned back to Izuku with a smirk. Do you want to run too or listen? What do you want? Izuku gritted out. Simple, a team up. Izuku laughed bitterly and looked at the paint on the ground. And that worked out so well last time. The leader tutted at him with a shake of his head. Except they were bad, annoying, dead weight. You on the other hand have experience. You know your way around here in guns. Why would I abandon that? And you have all the ammo. I'll have to decline. Not interested in getting shot later. The other sighed and drew his gun. Well, I was hoping to avoid this, but you're too stubborn anyway. He began firing at Izuku, who ran in zigzags to dodge the pellets. He ran up to the other and kicked at the shield. It wasn't enough force to break it, but it made him stumble back and lose his balance. You aren't the first to tell me that. He stood in a fighting position with a large smile on his face. He took out his Glock and began firing at the shield. Even if it bounced off, certain ones broke on impact, solidifying more of his theory. He jumped back as the other got up and began firing back at him. Running to the trees, Izuku twisted and landed on it before twisting and tackling the other, making him land in the dirt, the shield blocking Izuku from getting too close. He rolled off to the side, dodging the spray of bullets aimed at him. You're annoying too. Izuku smirked as he climbed into a tree before stomping down onto the shield. I get that one a lot too. He tried to shoot at Izuku's feet but missed as he jumped back into the trees. When he landed on the ground, he moved from side to side, kicking up dirt and dust from the cracked ground. The other glared at him, trying to hit him but only helping and kicking up more dirt. You and that girl are losers. What makes you think you can win? Huh, maybe be like her and run. Izuku dodged a fist and grabbed it before the shield returned and pushed him back. A little rude, don't you think? What happened to sportsmanship? As he yelled, he punched the ground with enough force to expand the dust cloud, making it hard to see in front of him. Oh, it went down the drain, just like you will. He aimed the gun at Izuku's head, who was crouched in front of him like he was ready to attack his legs. He smirked at Izuku and cocked the gun, ready to let off the round. So, any last words before you lose? Izuku kept his eyes on the ground before laughing. He looked up with a wide smile and cocked his head to the side like a question. Who said anything about losing? Just as he said that, a gunshot went off. The leader jerked forward and turned in shock to Suzuki, who had a gun aimed at his back. Surprise, bitch. The leader growled and aimed at Suzuki, ready to fire, only for his arm to be caught by Izuku and slammed back into the ground. Izuku crouched down and spoke quietly to the leader. You give yourself away. He patted his face with an evil look. Work on that. Izuku stood up and high-fived Suzuki with a cheer. Time's up. Izuku was in his own prep room. While it was made for a whole class, he was of course the only one in it. So when his phone broke the silence, he jumped out of his skin. Dabi. He picked up the phone and answered. Hey, what's up? Nothing, just wanted to say you look like a badass. He could hear the others cheering from the phone. A large smile broke out on Izuku's face as he laughed. Thanks, guys. Did we get you with Suzuki's betrayal? Are you kidding? Shinso shouted, taking the phone. That was more drama than any of those stupid rom-coms Firecracker makes us watch. You shut your fucking mouth. Izuku laughed harder as he heard the two start arguing. You're doing amazing, sweetie. Izuku let out another round of giggles at his mom encouraging him. He was glad they were all watching. Either way, we're proud of you. The other losers are rewatching the moment while you're on break. Izuku hummed as Dabi took the phone back. When you win this thing, we'll have to celebrate. Izuku sighed. I don't think I'm gonna win, Dabi. The other end of the phone was silent. All he could hear was shuffling. Why's that? You've kicked everyone's ass with barely any help. I know for a fact that Eraserhead'll be pissed if you don't. He let out a small huff of air, making it clear the last part was a joke. Dabi knew Aizawa could never be angry with Izuku. But all of that was strategy, using the world around me, things I'm good at. The next part is the 1v1s. I don't think I can do that. Izuku trailed off a little, feeling the nervousness come back to him. Izuku, listen to me. Take a deep breath and hold it. The teen did as instructed. Now let it go and actually think for a second. Alright. Dabi, what the fire user cut him off. Izuku, it may be the fights, but you're still in an arena. You're facing someone who might be stronger than you, who will have a quirk that you don't, but is probably the stupidest person ever. Use that brain of yours, Izuku. Smarter and harder. Alright. If you got nothing on you, then use them. Use it against them. It was silent for a moment as Izuku let the words sink in. You're right. He heard a sigh of relief from the other line. Thanks, Dabi. What'd I do without you? Probably have more room on the couch, honestly. At some point it had become common for them to always steal the couch together. Nah, I think I like sharing the couch. Izuku felt himself blushing before laughing nervously. I should go. Gotta get ready for my fight. Bye. He quickly hung up before the other could respond. He put a hand over his eyes and groaned. Why did I say that? We're in the final rounds now, and our first one-on-one fight is between the kid who keeps on giving, who has destroyed all the competition. IZUKUMIDORIYA. As Izuku walked out, he heard cheering. Though he was focused on his opponent, he had a plain look, brown hair and eyes with nothing truly standing out, and a member of Class B, who we haven't seen much of. Haru Ito. When he walked onto the arena, Ito seemed cocky, simply looking Izuku up and down before rolling his eyes. Congrats on making it this far, but we'll be taking over from here. Izuku didn't respond. He may have a similar quirk to Shinso and he couldn't risk it. The green-haired teen got into a simple fighting stance, his eyes tracking the other's every move. Go. As soon as the start was called, the teen in front of him turned into nothing. But something was still there, a shadow. Izuku watched the shadow but moved around just in case he was wrong, though it was unlikely. When the shadow got close to him, he watched an arm fly towards him. He stepped to the side and grabbed where he estimated it should be. As soon as he did, the other teen appeared again. He kept a grip on the arm as he turned and flung them to the ground. Ito tugged, trying to get out of his grasp, but Izuku held on tightly and yanked him back to his feet. With a simple punch, he knocked the plain-looking teen out and ended the round. MIDORIYAIZUKU wins. With a record time too. Izuku waited and helped carry the teen back to Recovery Girl, ignoring how Midnight mentioned something weird about sportsmanship. We weren't the ones to make the matchups, it's random. He turned and saw Aizawa leaning against the wall. I figured. He shrugged a little. It would have been fine if he wasn't so cocky and tried to use it sparingly. If he had turned invisible closer to me, it would have been more trouble. But he did it so far away that I could see the shadow right away. Aizawa hummed and pushed off the wall. I want you to win this, all right? Izuku nodded. But if you don't, I won't be angry, all right? He let out a laugh and nodded again. I know, Aizawa-sensei, but I want to win too. Aizawa smiled and ruffled his hair. Good luck then, kid. From what Izuku could tell, if he was going to win this he would have 3 more fights at least, unless there needed to be a tiebreaker, which was unlikely to begin with. So he kept track of all the winners of the fights after him. If he could figure out their quirks before he fought them, then he would have a better chance of winning. The other 7 winners had been a girl with a rock-based quirk that allowed her to control them, Naomi from the USJ incident, the guy from the USJ, someone with what seemed like a sound-based quirk that let them throw their voice, a rat-looking girl who was quick and slippery, a lizard, and Suzuki. With my luck I'll end up fighting her. He groaned out, sliding down in his seat, still clapping when she won though. Izuku was now fighting Suzuki, or he was supposed to be. I'm gonna be honest, she rubbed her arm awkwardly. I don't really want to fight you. The entire arena was silent. What? Izuku dropped out of his fighting stance. Suzuki, I won't be angry if you win, she waved her hands. It's not that, I promise. But Izuku, you intimidate the shit out of me. The first time we met you held up a building. The other teen blushed as she yelled that. Since it was so quiet everyone heard her. He did that. I thought he was quirkless. Why did he need to do that? I really want you to win this, so I drop out. She yelled to the announcer's box. MIDORIYA automatically wins. Izuku stared in shock before tackling the girl into a hug and laughing with her. You shouldn't have done that. It's gonna look so bad. She rolled her eyes and shoved him. Not if you win. Now come on, we're gonna get snacks and I'm sitting with you. Izuku sighed and let the girl drag him out of the arena. He would at least get a longer break this time. I feel like we should get soda and some chips. You're not on a diet, right? Why would I be on a diet? She started laughing. I don't know. I assumed with your godlike muscles you ate air and sunlight. Izuku blushed and hit her. Suzuki. With Suzuki with him the rounds seemed to pass faster. Even his own round had gone by quickly. Since the rock-based quirk didn't work on him and the only rock they had was the platform, there wasn't much she could do, so Izuku ended up just pushing her out of the ring after a small fight. Dude, you're kicking ass. Why do you look like someone pissed in your yard? Izuku looked at her weirdly for the comparison. What does never mind? He sat back down and sighed because this seems all too easy. Our first rounds were a little challenging. The second we had to get creative, but as soon as we get to the actual hard part it seems too easy. If this is about me dropping out I'll still fight you, Suzuki offered with a completely blank stare. No, I'm not going to fight you, Suzuki. Your loss or another win. She shrugged as they went back to watching the fight. It was Naomi versus the USJ guy. How did she even make it this far? She's not good at anything other than being a bitch. Her quirk is useful. She helped during the building. She also kinda caused it, but she helped at least. He tried to defend her, but there wasn't really a point. Well, when you fight her it'll be an easy win and you'll win the whole thing. Izuku only hummed, watching carefully. Something felt off. Naomi wins. The girl turned to them and glared at Izuku, though she was smiling. Fucking bitch. Suzuki flipped her off as Izuku maintained eye contact. I have a bad feeling about this. He stood up and went to his prep room, leaving Suzuki to worry about him. The final round. Naomi versus MIDORIYA. The cat/wonder or the quirkless fighter. Izuku stared at her from across the ring. She was standing casually with a hand on her hip. In no quirkless. I think you've had it easy. He shifted his foot back a little. I mean no one else in the class. Who puts you in your place? He lifted his hands in front of him. None of these fools, obviously. But I'm more than willing. She spread her hands palm out, the claws appearing. Go. She ran forward right away, wasting no time and slashing a hand where Izuku once stood. He stepped off to the side and grabbed her hand, though he was met with her other claws coming up and slashing at his arm. Jumping back, he placed a hand over the wound. The cut was deep and bleeding, and if it had been any lower. I don't plan on holding back, boy. She whipped her hand as blood flickered to the ground violently. You can drop out now. It'll be better than being torn to pieces. She charged at him again with a large toothy smile. He jumped back again, trying to dodge the long appendages. She was aiming to hurt him. Not just hurt him, but damage him badly. She wanted him dead. She wanted him dead. Focus, DUMBASS. Suzuki shouted in time for him to dodge another slash. Realizing she was cornering him to the edge, he took a breath and flipped onto his hands before pushing himself up and over her, flipping their positions and raising his hands again. He slowed his dodging a little, letting a cut appear on his forehead. He dropped down and swung his leg out, getting a large gash in it as she fell to the ground with a strangled scream. Not letting her get back up, he pinned her hands with his foot and used his other leg to hold her chest down. She tilted her hands and dug her nails into his hand. He winced but didn't let her go. Get the hell off me. She squirmed and dug into his hands, but he didn't move. Naomi, can you move? Midnight asked, getting closer to the pair, her eyes going to the large amount of blood coming from Izuku. Hell yeah. This bitch needs to get. Izuku watched one of her claws grow before it swiped down off. He stumbled back, feeling more blood drip down his arm. It distracted him enough that she was able to grab him by his hair and tug forward. He growled and punched her in the stomach before grabbing her head and slamming it against his knee. You broke my fucking nose. She held her face with tears in her eyes. And I'm going to bleed out. Looks like we're both having a bad day. He hopped a little before whipping the blood off his face. That only seemed to make her angrier as she charged again. But it was sloppier and slower than last time. He grabbed her shoulder and dragged her forward enough for her to stumble. Aiming his elbow, he slammed it down onto the back of her head, finally knocking her out. Midoriya wins. The green-haired boy let out a sigh of relief, his vision swimming a little from the blood loss. The ring had to look disgusting by now. He felt himself almost fall before Midnight caught him. You all right? They both knew he wasn't and he needed to lie down at least. But she still asked. Stings a lot, blood everywhere. He waved his hand around a little as Midnight helped him to recovery girl. You should see Sho's face. He looks like he's having a heart attack, Midnight joked, getting him to laugh a little until he realized that was streamed to everyone. Should call my mom. Probably think I'm dying. It's all right, we'll have Sho deal with that. Izuku hummed as Midnight sat him down on the mattress. He didn't remember getting there. Look what you did. Recovery girl shouted in fake anger. It was mostly worrying over the injuries. You're gonna sleep for a week when I'm done with you, she threatened, though Izuku would admit a small coma sounded good. Recovery girl sighed and placed a kiss on his forehead while Midnight helped clean the still bleeding wounds. Izuku, Suzuki burst into the room. Looking close to tears, dude, you look like shit. That's the last thing Izuku remembered hearing before he passed out. Passing out to your friend saying you look like shit was a first for Izuku, but he doubted it would be the last. Oh, thank fuck. Izuku opened his eyes to Suzuki, smiling. I thought you died. My last words to you were gonna be an insult. With a small laugh, he began to sit up. It would have been a fun last few moments. Snake-haired girl punched him in the shoulder with a roll of her eyes. Maybe for you. Once they stopped laughing, Izuku could hear people talking outside. Oh right. Dude, your mom showed up with a bunch of kids. I thought she was gonna kill that bitch herself. His eyes widened as he tried to stand up. They're here. The door was then slammed open, showing a very angry Aizawa and Inko. I want that child expelled. She shouldn't have been allowed to cause so much damage. Inko shouted, sitting on the bed next to Izuku, who was too shocked to say anything. I know, I'm already talking to Nenzu about it now, but he says since it's the sports festival it can be excused. Dabi followed in after them with a small smile and sat in between Izuku and Suzuki. Sup, name's Dabi. I sleep on their couch. Suzuki burst out laughing as Dabi held out a hand. Don't greet people like that, Izuku shouted, shoving the older teen. What? It's true. I don't care if it's true. It's a weird way to greet people. I thought it was fun. She shook his hand with a large smile. I'm Suzuki. He stopped a building from falling on me. Izuku groaned and covered his face. I'm surrounded by crazy people. Once Inko and Aizawa had calmed down and they had tracked down the others, they decided to move their conversation to the cafeteria area. It's dumb as fuck though, Katsuki shouted. Small explosions in his palms. That bitch should be punished. Kirishima nodded along. Oh, I like him, Suzuki decided as the blonde shouted profanities, and I agree. She was clearing aiming to kill, not even just maim or take down. We sadly don't have enough proof to say she was, Aizawa explained with a deep frown. It was obvious that he wanted to punish the student himself. No proof, Zero yelled. She announced it on live TV. Denki and Mina nodded next to him. Exactly. She should have detention at least, Mina decided with Denki hyping her up. That is not the problem here, Shinso groaned, rubbing his temples. Katsuki rolled his eyes. Raccoon 1 is right. Dabi and Shinso stared at him confused. The fucking issue is that no one stopped the goddamn fight. Why am I Raccoon 1? Shinso asked with a small smile. I've known you longer than the burnt chicken. Fuck you. Denki slammed his hands on the table as he stood up, getting everyone's attention. Theoretically, we can't do anything right. Like she won't face punishment, right? It's not theoretical. We can't do anything about it, Aizawa said, still frowning. He didn't like people messing with his students, especially his favorite one. No, he's onto something. Use that brain, Denki, Zero shouted, making the others laugh. All right. So ... say she really likes electronics, right? Suzuki nodded in confirmation. So if ever the electronics she touched just so happened to malfunction and shock her, it would piss her off. You would need a way to get that close though. Shinso smirked as he stood up. So theoretically, let's just say I might not have control of my quirk. As a pro hero and teacher, I can't condone this. Everyone turned to him a little disappointed, but I just so happened to be sleeping this entire time and have heard nothing. Dabi, Suzuki, Zero, Kirishima, and Mina immediately lost it as Shinso, Denki, and Inko went to put the plan in order fully. This is so worrying. Oh god. Izuku rested his head on the table. While he had felt better, he still lost a lot of blood. A warm hand rested on his neck, making him lean into it with a smile. Told you you'd win. He looked at a smirking Dabi and kicked him in the leg. Shut it. Suzuki watched them carefully before leaning over to Katsuki, Mina, and Zero. So there. She waved her hand between them. Oh definitely. We have a betting pool on it. It's fucking disgusting. All they do is stare at each other. Bro, you are not any better. The four looked to Kirishima, who had been pretty quiet. Have you seen Katsuki cut him off by tackling him? Keep your fucking mouth shut. Oh, I gotta know this drama, Suzuki shouted, trying to get Katsuki off of Kirishima. Izuku came into class the next day feeling a lot better and with most of his wounds healed up. Midoriya. Izuku looked up at the voice confused before seeing Mirio. Oh, Mirio-senpai. It's good to see you. I saw the sports festival. You did fantastic. The blonde smiled brighter. Are you kidding? You did amazing. That last fight was scary. Izuku laughed a little and rubbed the back of his neck. A lot scarier in person, I've been told. Looking around, he noticed no one else was in the hall. What are you doing here anyway? He paused for a moment, realizing it sounded a little rude. Not like at school, obviously. Just here specifically. Isn't the second-year class on a different floor? Mirio only laughed and patted his back. It is, but I wanted to congratulate you on winning. It's impressive to say the least. Izuku paused. No one had told him he won the festival except when he had been with the others after the fight. Oh, thank you. I should get to class, but still, amazing job. Izuku nodded as the older teen left. The quirkless teen ran to his classroom and slammed the door open, shocking Aizawa, who was working on grading other papers. I won. You didn't tell me. The pro hero stared at him. You were announced the winner. How did you not know? Izuku threw his bag onto the seat. Because I was suffering blood loss. I thought it was a dream. Aizawa sighed and stood up. Well, it wasn't. Congrats, you won the sports festival. He patted the other on the head before continuing, and with that you now have to choose a hero name and an internship. He whispered the last part, confusing Izuku, but he ignored it for now. Okay, how do I choose a name? Aizawa stared at him, leaning against his desk. I have literally no idea. Present Mike chose mine. Seriously? Yep, so he's going to help you choose yours. Aizawa walked out of the room, presumably to get Present Mike. I'm not choosing a name like that. The door was slammed back open by a loud blonde. Hey, that is a good name. Izuku laughed as the pro defended himself. It's a fine name, but not for me. Present Mike smiled. Well, of course I know that. I always learn my audience, little listener. Izuku laughed. He honestly really liked Present Mike. He understood how the two teachers were married now. I want a list of things about you. What's important to you, who's important to you, what your costume is like, and weapons. Go. It took him a while, but Izuku finished the list. He wasn't sure how this would help him with his hero name, but he was more than willing to try. Let's take a look. The loud hero picked up the paper and began reading it over, marking certain things in his head. Oh, who's Dabi? Your boyfriend. Izuku blushed and shoved the hero. No, Present Mike only smirked wider. Just finish reading the list. Well, a good one would be Deadeye. Izuku nodded and wrote the name on the blackboard. Green would be easy. Maybe Rabbit if we want to get funky. The green-haired teen rolled his eyes at the description. I don't have many more ideas. Taking a step back, Izuku stared at the board. A few ideas flooding into his head. He liked Deadeye and Rabbit the most so far. What about something with sundown? Present Mike looked at him confused. Well, in a lot of Western movies, fights happen at sundown, and if I planned to be an underground hero, it would be true. Oh, I love that idea. Present Mike took the opportunity to write it on the board. Sundown itself is too close to Tamaki-senpai's name, Suneater. Maybe Dead Knight. No, that sounds too violent and intimidating. He began pacing the room, mumbling under his breath about different combinations or words he could use. Black hole. No, focus on one part too much. Daybreak, he shouted, running up to the board and writing it down. I wanna be Daybreak. I like it. Is there a reason? When I was younger, I was disappointed when I found out I was quirkless ... but then my mom said I could still be a hero. It was like a light at the end of a tunnel. He turned to Present Mike, determined. I want to be the light at the end of the tunnel for other people. Present Mike looked close to tears with his explanation. Oh, that's so sweet. You're too sweet, Midoriya. He picked the teen up, who yelped, and spun him around. Please don't kill my student. Aizawa greeted as he walked in. Did you choose a name? Yep. Present Mike set Midoriya down. Meet the underground hero Daybreak. He did little jazz hands as Izuku blushed. Like it. Now let's go over internships. You're no fun show. Get out of my classroom, Hisashi. Oh, first name. I should run. Good luck, little listener. Izuku waved goodbye as he sat with Aizawa at the teacher's desk. Sadly, even though you won the festival, some heroes still are too scared to take you on, so you got less than you should have. The teen sighed a little, but the ones you got are good either way. Go ahead and look through them. Izuku nodded and picked up the papers. Aizawa hadn't been lying. Most of the internships were from the higher-ranking heroes. Ones from Ingenium, Edgeshot, and Maruko all shocked him, but the ones from Best Jeanist and Hawks were truly surprising. One caught his eye, though. It was from Sir Night-Eye, All Might's old sidekick. That one is one Mirio gave to me. Izuku looked up confused. Apparently he talked to Night-Eye and he agreed that you could be a good fit. I'm not going to lie to you. I know the guy. He can be a huge prick constantly, but if you choose him, I won't stop you. I think I will. He has experience with having a weaker quirk, right? Maybe he can give me more pointers on being in the limelight and dealing with large-scale threats. Aizawa didn't look happy on the choice but nodded as a backup, just in case I'll choose Hawks too. Izuku paced around the room with slightly shaking hands. It felt like he was buzzing with energy but also like he was ready to pass out. You all right, kid? Aizawa asked, leaning against the door of the training room. Yes. Well, no. I don't know. He sank to the ground a little, Aizawa rolling his eyes, and sat down next to Izuku. I'm just really nervous. I haven't been away from my family for that long before. What if the kids need me? What if something happens with Dabi? Or something? Aizawa cut him off. Listen, I get why you're nervous. Just take a few breaths, okay? Izuku nodded, doing as told. Look, I'll talk with your mom. We'll make sure they text you or call or something so you know they're okay. It'll all be alright. Just relax. Okay. Okay, yeah. He smiled at his teacher before standing up. Thanks, Aizawa-sensei. No problem. The teen looked at the impossibly large building, people going in and out of it quickly, passing by him easily or ignoring his presence. With a final breath, Izuku pushed through the doors, going to where he knew he was supposed to meet with Mirio. Midoriya. He turned and smiled at the older teen. Mirio-senpai. Izuku hugged the other teen with a laugh. It's good to see you again. I know. Are you excited? Terrified, more like. He rubbed the back of his neck. But I think I'll live, you know. Good to hear. I'll show you the way. I'm sure Sir Night-Eye is excited to meet you too. Izuku highly doubted it, but he was willing to let Mirio think that. They climbed up the stairs while Mirio gave Izuku a quick rundown of how things worked. From what Izuku could guess, Sir Night-Eye had a weird obsession with comedy and was still slightly obsessed with All Might. That's one of the things that made him really nervous. Midoriya. Izuku. The teen froze a little when they came to Sir Night-Eye. He was looking down at them as he pushed up his glasses. Welcome. Night-Eye tried to lay a hand on his shoulder, but Izuku dodged. Sorry, Aizawa-sensei said I'm too open and that I need to start setting boundaries with people I don't know. Night-Eye squinted, looking slightly intrigued. I see. Do you happen to know anything about my quirk? Izuku shook his head but soon smiled widely. I would actually like to ask about it though. Since it's not a physical quirk, it's a lot harder to get a read on. So any information I have is almost purely on assumption, so if you want to answer some questions then another time. Izuku nodded a little sadly. Please follow me to my office so we can finish paperwork. Right. He waved to Mirio before following the hero. So what paperwork is there? Since you accepted me as your intern, it should have all been finalized, right? Aizawa had assured him that it would all be taken care of. Usually. But for my interns it's different. I test them before I accept them, and you managed to pass the first part. Izuku paused. Excuse me. What exactly was the first part? I don't remember you saying anything. My quirk activates first through touch, then through eye contact, by not allowing the first step you passed. Wait. The first part of the test was something I couldn't have known about. Night-Eye nodded. Izuku didn't follow the hero any further, though that isn't exactly fair though. Is the rest of the test like this? Should I have been given information? Izuku understood surprise tests. Aizawa did them all the time, like on the first day, but this one seemed different. The first part of the test was something he couldn't have possibly known, and if Izuku was right, the rest of it would be like that. There was no information to give. Night-Eye turned to him, still looking down at him. If you wish to complain more, then I won't accept you for the internship. Why? Because I'm asking important questions. Did you make all your interns do this or just me? If it's all of them, that's concerning because you're wasting their time. I understand that respect is earned, but it's a two-way street and you definitely haven't earned mine by any means. And then he kicked me out. The group stared at Izuku before Shinso, Katsuki, and Denki all started laughing. Holy shit, are you serious? Katsuki asked through gasps of air. I literally can't believe this happened. I need to lie down, Mina said, laying across Izuku and Dabi casually. I think you did the right thing. Has Aizawa figured anything out yet? Izuku hummed and leaned against Dabi. He said he'll look into other heroes for me to intern under, but for now just to train like normal. Dude, I don't think anyone's gotten kicked out like that. Shiro patted Izuku's shoulder in sympathy, though the older one didn't seem that upset about it. Probably. And getting kicked out by All Might's old sidekick didn't do anything for my image. He put his head in his hands with a sigh. He was glad he stood up for himself, but it could have backfired. I think it makes you even more manly, Kirishima shouted with a large smile. Think about it. You're a badass and you don't take anyone's crap. Yeah, what Shitty Hair said. Izuku smiled at them. Thanks for trying to cheer me up, guys. The teen paused when his phone started going off. Hello, got another hero for you, kid. Know the pro hero Hawks. Try not to get kicked out again. Loser. Izuku rolled his eyes, ignoring Shinso as he left the house. Since he had to leave earlier in the morning, Dabi had offered to walk the kids. That way Izuku would have time to prepare for the internship. He hoped that this one would be more successful than his Night-Eye internship. Even though it hadn't even lasted a day, he felt confident enough to say it was probably one of the worst in UA history. Who even got kicked out on their first day? other than when Aizawa-sensei expelled people. Using the shoes he designed, he summoned the skateboard and went off. It wasn't much faster than running or walking, but it was calming enough for him to get his mind straight. The teachers had talked to him the day before, talking about what would happen if he was kicked out again. They would simply all treat him like an intern for the next week or so. None of them were allowed to offer him an internship since they were his teachers. But Nedzu made it clear that if it happened again, they would ignore the rule. He tried to think why Hawks had offered in the first place. Izuku's fighting style was similar to Eraserhead's, Midnight's, and most other heroes with weak or specific quirks, but Hawks' fighting style was more diverse. He was able to use his wings and feathers for multiple things. There was a reason he was the number 3 hero. Maybe I can ask him when I get there. He stopped when the light turned red, letting the cars go while he thought, or I'll keep my mouth shut and not get kicked out again. Once it turned green, he kicked off again. It took around an hour before Izuku made it to the hero agency. He was a little surprised with how fast he had gotten there, but assumed he had sped up when he was lost in thought. Walking in, he was a little surprised with how professional the place looked. Hawks was an amazing hero, but he wasn't exactly known for his professionalism or strictness. How can I help you? The person at the desk had light gray skin and sharp teeth. My name's Midoriya Izuku. I'm here for an internship. They hummed, typing something in the computer before smiling. All right, I'll get you in the system and let Hawks know you're here. Why don't you take a seat over there? They pointed to a small collection of chairs in the corner. Thank you. He set the case, holding his costume on his lap, thinking about wearing his wrist computer and updating his files to pass the time. But he assumed it would be a little rude to do so. Here we go. They walked out from behind the desk holding a small card. We try to keep security tight here, so you'll need this badge. It looked like a small key card that a hotel would use. It'll let you into any place you need, as well as let you buy food and drinks in the building. Especially handy since you'll be here for a while. They nudged him a little with a smile. Hopefully. Don't worry, Hawks is actually a pretty chill guy. Izuku didn't find that hard to believe, but he had also met a lot of chill guys that turned out to be bad behind closed doors. I'll take you up to his office. He's meeting with another hero right now. The teen silently prayed that it wasn't Endeavor. While most of the top heroes weren't known for interacting with each other often, Hawks had shown an interest in trying to befriend Endeavor. Not that it meant much since Hawks was famous for being friendly with all heroes. Hawks. They knocked on the door. There wasn't an answer, but Izuku could hear what sounded like fighting on the other side. Your intern is. The receptionist paused at the scene in front of them. Hawks was pinned to the ground with one of his arms twisted behind his back while Maruko was cackling and putting pressure on the arm. Admit it. Never. The two rolled around a little more, but Hawks wasn't able to escape Maruko. Are we interrupting? Both heroes froze, finally seeing the two in the doorway. Should we come back later? Nope. Hawks' wings flung out, kicking Maruko off of him. Sorry about that. She was just leaving. The hero grunted as he tried to push the woman out. I wasn't. Right, they sighed, making it obvious that this had happened before. Well, Hawks, your intern Midoriya is here. Is it safe to leave him in your care? Totally. Completely safe. Izuku had trouble believing him since Hawks was still trying to push Maruko out of the room. Well, if you need me, I'll be in the lobby, Midoriya. Don't be afraid to come get me if either of them become too much. Thank you. He turned back to the two heroes, Maruko glaring at him while Hawks finally gave up on trying to push her out. Hi. Nice to meet you, Midoriya. Hawks offered a hand. Is there a reason you picked me second? Well, one of my upperclassmen wanted me to try his mentor, but it didn't go well. He rubbed his arm a little, looking off to the side. You're the kid that told off Night Eye. Maruko cackled. That took some guts, kid. Thanks. Is that why you're so nervous? Hawks asked, rubbing his chin. Cause I know I'm famous, but come on. He pretended to flip his hair while Maruko rolled her eyes. A little. You're also one of the very few heroes to offer an internship. Most didn't want to because of the whole Quirkless thing. Hawks only waved a hand. Don't really care about that. You won the sports festival. With a shrug, he made it seem like that's all that mattered. Yeah, but the hero put a hand over his mouth. Silence. You are my intern, which means you listen to me. Izuku and Maruko both lifted an eyebrow. Okay, well, you're supposed to listen to me. He whipped around to the other hero. And don't encourage rebellion. It's bad for morale. I feel like it's great for morale. She turned to Izuku. Wanna overthrow this guy and take over his agency? Sure. The woman cheered while Hawks looked offended. You were nervous a second ago. Where did that go? Izuku only shrugged a little. Stop instilling rebellion. He tried to tackle Maruko, but she dodged and easily turned the tide against Hawks. As he watched the two fight, he pulled out a small notepad and began taking notes on their fighting styles and defenses. Both of them were good fighters, but it was obvious that Maruko was used to close combat. While Hawks was more for aerial fighting, he could still fight close combat, but she was simply better than him. Are you taking notes on our fighting? The two heroes had paused while Izuku was mumbling to himself. Oh, sorry. He closed the notebook and was about to put it back when Hawks stopped him. Wait, I want to see what you wrote. The blonde flipped through the few pages he had written and whistled. Wow, you are observant. Let me see. Maruko reads them before nodding along with Hawks. Can you do this with other heroes and villains? Hawks asked, handing Izuku his notebook back. Yes, I actually have a complete database on heroes and villains' quirks, fighting styles, strengths, weaknesses. Aizawa-sensei and Principal Nedzu helped me code the entire thing. That way if someone were to access it they would have no idea what any of it said. Kid, you have got to show me this thing. Izuku smiled at the prospect of showing off the info. He opened his case and grabbed the arm sleeve that had his screen on it. Turning it on, he went over to Hawk's desk and took a cord, plugging it into the computer and uploading the database. Damn. Just looking at the amount of files seemed to overwhelm the winged hero. How long have you been doing this? Well, I started when I was younger. I wanted to know everything about quirks. When I thought I would get mine, I wanted to be prepared. Then when I learned I wasn't getting one, I wanted to know out of a curiosity. Figure out what I was missing. Then it started turning into preparing for any fight. Aizawa-sensei has been helping me hone in and analyze an enemy as quickly as possible. Let's test that theory. Maruko grabbed both boys and dragged them through the agency until they were in a large gym. Tell Bird Brain here how to fight better against me. Izuku nodded once. He looked over Maruko quickly, noting her posture, stance, how quickly she was breathing, and her focus. He did the same to Hawks before shouting, "You have better skills in the air. Get higher." The blonde nodded and flew above. Maruko only smirked and jumped up, ready to kick him back down. Drop. Hawks folded his wings and let himself drop to the ground. She's used to having to get close to her opponent. If you stay far enough away and tire her out, you'll have a better chance. You got all of that from her stance. Well, I have watched her fight before. But kinda. He watched the two go around the gym, Hawks taking his advice and trying to tire her out. Her feet were shifted, ready to run at a moment's notice. She's used to having to chase her opponents down, and her quirk lets her do that strong and quickly. She knows you have the aerial advantage, so she was ready to jump, but she wasn't ready for you to drop like that. Nice, Maruko shouted, even though she was slightly more winded now. Kid's right. We fight all the time and you pull the most random shit, but you never go on the defensive. Do I really not? Most of your fights you go head on. Izuku paused and waved his hands a bit. Not that that's a bad thing. It works for most, but if someone fights you enough they get used to it. You use your feathers as blades, you tackle people, but you never try to wear your opponents out, you try to stamina them by being faster and more agile. But I'm faster, Maruko shouted, suddenly tackling Hawks to the ground. But she's faster. Damn, didn't know I was that predictable. Hawks dusted his jacket off. Any ideas for that? Maybe ... you could try to go defensive more. You have the stamina to outlast them ... Have you seen those action movie car chases? Where the protagonist suddenly stops, letting the two cars crash or swerve? You could do that. Like when you told me to drop. Izuku nodded along. I feel like this'll be the start of a wonderful internship. Midori. This house is a fucking nightmare. Bakubich, who the fuck changed my name again? Raccoon, wow, it is such a mystery. We may never know. Possum, Shinso did it. Raccoon, I hope you choke and die. Spider Tape Man, hey Midoriya senpai's on. Electric Boogaloo. MIIDDDOORRRRRIIIY. How was your first time? Raccoon, did they kick you out yet? Robin Hood. Not yet. Divided by, but it was really good. Hawks took my analysis seriously and Maruko was there. Ultra Strawberry Dreams. Oh, to see that woman in person. Ultra Red. I like men but ... you know. Electric Boogaloo. Who wownt? Possum. As the only legal adult I'm stopping this now. Bakubich. So your ass is robbing the cradle then? Possum. How about you shut your fucking mouth? Raccoon. Can't believe this. Spider Tape Man. Can't believe what? Raccoon. Exactly. Robin Hood. No. Electric Boogaloo. I don't even know anymore. Raccoon. Also those girls from the cafe said good luck. Robin Hood. I haven't seen them in forever. Ask them later how their tests went. Ultra Strawberry Dreams. Midoriya senpai's replacing us. Bakubich at Robin Hood die. Ultra Red. You made Bakubro type die in lowercase. Look what you've done. Possum. I'd replace you all too. Robin Hood. I'm not replacing any of you. They just come to the cafe sometimes. They're around your guys' ages anyway. Electric Boogaloo changed Robin Hood's name to Traitor. Ultra Red changed the group's name to the other woman. Traitor, how are you all this dramatic? Alright, having Maruko here yesterday definitely opened up some ideas for your training. But for now I want to do what I originally planned. Hawks led the two back to the training room. This time Izuku was fully dressed in his gear and weapons, which is... Drum roll please. Hawks pretended to pause and waited until Izuku hit the wall to create the drum roll thank you, which is teaching you how to fight bigger and better opponents. No offense, but isn't that what I normally do at school? Full offense taken, and yes, Hawks did a little spin, but they can only teach you so much. I know most of the teacher's quirks and a surprising amount are actually rescue or underground heroes. Don't worry, those types of heroes are the best for teaching the next generation and whatnot, but you don't exactly have any powerhouses on staff except Nedzu. He scares me. I think he scares everyone. Exactly. But since you don't have any powerhouses on staff, the only time you get to fight someone with a quirk considered stronger or better than most, the only experience you have is the sports festival, which, while you were bleeding out near the end, we all know how that went. I would like to avoid that. Hawks pointed at the teen, which is where I come in. I'm the number 3 hero. You won't get more powerhouse than me, unless you interned with Endeavor All Might. Izuku made a face at the names, which he will clearly never do, so we'll start off simple with a spar. Izuku nodded and got into a low fighting position. He could assume that Hawks would take to the air and simply send his feathers after the teen, but there was also the possibility of the hero going for a close-range attack with one of his larger feathers. Good, you're already thinking ahead. Hawks drew one of his larger feathers, but like I said, we'll keep it simple, so we'll play to your strengths for now, which is close range, right? Izuku nodded. Good. The hero raced forward, swinging the feather at Izuku, who ducked down and drew his Eskrima rods and blocking the next hit. He pushed forward, throwing Hawks off balance, trying to aim for his legs. Hawks jumped before turning and swinging the feather down. Izuku rolled to the side before putting his Eskrima rods back. He used his capture weapon to wrap around the hero's leg and pulled, once again throwing Hawks off balance while pulling the teen closer. He kicked his leg up, almost hitting the hero across the jaw before Hawks grabbed his ankle and flew up. Izuku quickly wrapped his capture weapon around Hawks' leg again. When the other tried to drop him, the hold Izuku had on his leg allowed him to slow his descent before he landed in a roll. Not bad. Hawks landed. Some of your tricks almost got me, but it's not bad for a first attempt. Thanks. Izuku beamed at the hero, feeling a little winded from the spar. Now with your sticks, do they connect and make a staff? Huh? Oh, no, they just stay apart. I would think about changing that. I don't know if you know how to use a staff, but it would help with range and movement. Izuku thought about it for a moment before typing the idea out on his computer. Now I see you also have gunsway. Long range. If I was fighting someone who Izuku paused and stared at the hero, do you want me to shoot you? I mean, no. But in a training sense, it would give you the advantage. What kind of rounds do you use? I have rubber bullets, beanbag shots. I added paintballs recently, and actual bullets for emergencies. The teen walked closer and showed his screen. I was actually thinking of creating a small disc that would let out an electric charge. My Eskrima rods also let out electricity though, and I wasn't sure if that would be overdoing it. I don't think you can overdo it really. It'd be just like someone with a basic lightning quirk. He hadn't thought about it that way before. True. I wonder if there's more I can change with my gear and weapons. If you want to run some ideas by me, I'm more than willing, Midoriya. But let's get back to training for now. They had spent the rest of the morning sparring, changing whether or not Hawks was in the air to get variety. The hero had been impressed when Izuku easily adapted to either style, seeming to have plans around any advantage the hero might have had. Not bad. Hawks offered his hand to Izuku, who was laying on the ground catching his breath. How long have you been training? Izuku grabbed the hand and let Hawks tug him up before answering. Ever since we found out I was quirkless. He folded his hands behind his head, taking deep breaths. I started with Parker and free running, but when I turned 6 she let me take a bunch of fighting classes. She sounds pretty great. She is. She supported me through everything. He laughed a little. I've brought home 2 different strangers and now they live with us, and she just kinda accepted it. Hawks laughed at that. How do you end up with 2 strangers? Well, one's my little brother, Shinso Itoshi. I met him one day at the beach and we hung out, and I gave him my number, telling him to call me if he ever needed anything. Izuku smiled a little sadly. He called me a few days later cause his foster home was abusive, so I just kinda took him. I don't know about condoning kidnapping. I did not kidnap him. He shoved the hero, who only laughed again. All right. What about the other one? Oh, Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. I kinda found him bleeding in an alley on the way home from work. Hawks stared at him. You did not. I did. Oh my god. Hawks burst out laughing again. Kidnapping. It's not kidnapping. As it got later into the day, Hawks was called away for a meeting he couldn't take Izuku to, so he had called Maruko to watch the teen. Why am I babysitting? Because he needs adult supervision. I really don't. And you seem to like him. So think of this as me setting up a play date. The hero clapped his hands as he walked out the door. There's food on the counter for pizza, and make sure he gets to bed before 8 o'clock. Once he was out of the room, Maruko stared at Izuku before walking over to him. Got more of that analysis? Sure. Did you want you specifically, other heroes, or some villains? He opened the laptop that the secretary had let him borrow during his stay, plugging his small wrist computer into it. Show me mine first. He nodded and opened her analysis, typing in the password before adding the cipher keys. Damn, you got this locked up. Aizawa-sensei and Principal Nedzu mentioned it could be dangerous if someone else saw all of this, so they taught me how to code it. I did have to rewrite all my notebooks though and hide the old ones. Damn, you said you were doing this for a while, right? Yep, more specifically since I was about 3. Maruko let out a low whistle before reading the page. Here we go. I did 2 on you. One's just for your fighting style while the other is about your quirk. Cool. She read it over before standing up. I wanna try that. She pointed to one of his style ideas. Throw something at me. He nodded and took one of his paintball rounds out, letting her get away from his before he threw it as hard as he could. As it came towards her, she shifted her legs before kicking one of them in an arc, creating a wind-like blast that sent the paintball back to Izuku, who ducked. Yes, try shooting at me this time. When Hawks got back, he froze, seeing the training room a mess. There were random holes and paint splatters all around the room, with Maruko and Izuku fighting in the middle of the chaos. What the hell happened? They both paused before going back to fighting. Once Maruko had Izuku pinned, she answered, "You told me to babysit. I'm babysitting." To emphasize her point, she then sat on Izuku's back, who only huffed and accepted defeat. You had to watch him, not destroy the place. I watched him do it. Does that count? Hawks sighed. Midoriya, why did you destroy the place? She was testing out one of my move ideas, and then we wanted to see how well I could hit a moving target. Maruko showed her chest, a few paint marks on her outfit. I can hit one pretty well, but then we got a little too excited, I think. He waved his hand at all the marks on the walls and floor. Yeah, I can see that. Hawks sighed again. I'm never having kids. This is a nightmare. The two laughed at him. All right, that's enough training for today. Go ahead and get changed and whatnot, Midoriya, while I cuss out the babysitter. I didn't do anything wrong. Dabi, hey, your mom's detective friend came over today. He's already talked to my older sister and brother, said he's gonna do my mom next. Izuku, that's amazing. Did he tell them where you were or anything? Should we get them something? Oh, ask mom if we should invite them to dinner sometime. Dabi, you are a lot more excited than me. Izuku, why aren't you excited? Dabi, I'm mostly thinking of the fact they all might hate me or SM. Izuku, how could they hate you? Dabi, can you call? Izuku sat up and leaned against the wall, waiting for Dabi to answer. Hey, why would they hate you? He heard the other sigh. I already told you I left them, right? Not to mention he probably told them I was dead or some other shit. Fayumi might know I'm alive since I saw her a while ago. But I don't know, I still feel like I failed them after everything. Dabi, you didn't fail them. You got out, and that may seem selfish, but it's okay to be selfish sometimes. It should have never been your job to save them. But Shado's my younger brother, he shouldn't have to. And Fayumi and Natsuo were older than both of you. You better not be blaming them. I'm not, Dabi, I promise. But you getting angry for me even hinting at that is how I feel when you say it's your fault. There's always going to be someone you wished you could help or protect, and sometimes you can't or you're too late. But we can. We've made a plan. It's already working, and we can help your little brother and your mother. Izuku sighed and looked at the ceiling. It's only Endeavor's fault. He's the one that did all those things, not your siblings, not you, not your mother, him. The line was silent for a second, making Izuku check that Dabi hadn't hung up. Thanks, Izuku. Force Dabi. Wait, did you still want to be called Dabi, or? Do not call me Tauya, I will actually throw up. Izuku laughed. Okay, you can stay Dabi then. The two sat silently, just listening to each other breath and shift any noise that the phone would pick up. Did you want to hang up? Or, can we stay on call? Izuku laid down. It still feels weird not sleeping at the house. Guess I got used to you guys. He chuckled, laying one of his arms over his eyes. That's fine with me, but you know if Hitoshi finds out, he's gonna give you shit for it. He gives me shit for everything. I think I can deal with the teasing. Izuku flipped through his notebooks while Hawks looked over a case. He had wanted to look at old ideas for support items to maybe update them for future use. He also had some ideas for new ones thanks to his friends. He always thought Kirishima's quirk was interesting. The teen usually hardened his hands and chest to attack or defend. Izuku had also been helping the teen figure out more moves to help with fighting. Since he was at the internship, though, Dabi had taken over helping the kids along with Kirishima's moms. Though Dabi was getting all of his rambles about their advances and quirks. And bored, he looked over and saw the hero throw the papers in the air. What are you doing? It has to be more interesting. He threw himself down next to Izuku and looked over at the notebook. I was looking at old ideas for support items. I've been wanting to update some of my stuff ever since you mentioned I should make my Eskrima rods connect. Looks like you have some notes on a Kirishima quirk. It's one my friends, well, he's better friends with my brother, but we're pretty close as a group and I usually help with their quirks. Our friend Kaminari is actually the one who gave me the idea of electrifying my sticks. So then what did Kirishima's quirk give you an idea for? Well, soles of my shoes are weighted to give my kicks an extra punch. They also transform easily. How? Well, it's this tech that I had read about. Similar to nanotechnology and folding metal. He tapped the tip of his right foot twice, activating the skate C. The metal folds out and corrects itself into the form that I programmed it for. He deactivated the soles. I was thinking of maybe creating another form. Like maybe some armor. I'm not sure though. Well, how does Kirishima use his quirk? Well, used to only use it defensively, but I've been trying to show him how to use it offensively, like hardening his hands to attack, maybe like punching the ground and causing disturbance, stuff like that. How would you copy it? I think maybe like my shoes. Kirishima does this thing where he hits his knuckles together like this. Izuku hit his hands together. I could use that to activate it. Like when I tap my shoes, then the metal armor will wrap around my forearms and it could give my hits a boost. And I could use them like shields. You should add some other stuff too, like electricity or something. See if you can make it green. It'll match your hair. Thanks, Hawks. Yeah, no problem. The two fist bump now. Any other ideas? Well, if I'm going to add electricity, maybe I should also add fire and some kind of explosive. Or maybe some kind of corrosive liquid. Let me guess, all quirks of your friends? Yep, I would do one for Zero, but my capture weapons are already pretty similar and Hitoshi's quirk is mental, so. Well, now I feel left out. I want support item friendship. What the hell? What? Listen, he grabbed Izuku's shoulders. You're interning under me, but we're friends, got it? You can't escape this and you shouldn't want to. I'm like the coolest hero here. Well, another word and you're fired. So you want to make a support item with all of us involved. Izuku sighed and sunk down in the bed. Well, originally it was just going to be like Kirishima's because, well, hardening is a really cool quirk and I thought extra armor would be good and it just kinda spiraled cause Hawk said I should add electricity like my sticks and then I thought, well, Izuku covered his face. Even though Dabi couldn't see him, I thought about adding fire, you know, like you, and then I thought maybe like explosives, and then I thought about acid and it just kinda spiraled and then Hawks felt jealous. I don't know. You thought about me. Izuku felt himself blush and cover his face more. Well, you just. It's fine, Izuku. I'm just teasing. Ugh, shut up. The other laughed and Izuku could imagine him holding his stomach. He wondered when he started to know how Dabi would react. But you got any ideas for Hawks? He has wings and I don't think Aizawa-sensei would let me fly. Teach wants you permanently on the ground. I think he'd rather cut off his own leg. Sounds about right. What else? Well, he uses his feathers as swords, so maybe that. You want swords? They would be cool. You are not getting swords. So you want swords? Izuku shrugged a little. Maybe not swords, but a knife or something could definitely help, right? Aizawa-sensei has a knife he uses. Hawks hummed. Not a bad idea. You'll want to look into more stuff later. Of course. Good. Now let's get some work done. The other woman. Traitor, you guys seriously haven't fixed the names yet. Electric Boogaloo. What's there to change, huh? Possum. He's making support weapons inspired by us. Electric Boogaloo changed Traitor's name to Best Big Brother. Electric Boogaloo changed the chat's name to We Love MIDORIYA. Possum, your love is easy to buy. Electric Boogaloo. IHV, no idea what you're talking about. Ultra Red. What's one for mine? Best Big Brother. Well, actually it was originally yours, Kirishima. Ultra Red. Fuck yeah. Baku bitch, what the fuck, why not me? I've been here the longest. Ultra Strawberry Dreams. Baku out here getting territorial. Raccoon, should I be offended as your actual brother? Best Big Brother. No, because your quirk is mental and we've both been working really hard to get where we are without our quirks. Raccoon, I've picked up the crying effect of the Midoriyas. Possum can confirm he's crying. Raccoon, if Mom wasn't in the room I'd kill you. Spider Tape Man, I think he copied me first because his capture weapons are on his arms like my tape. Baku bitch, everyone shut the fuck up. Baku bitch, now explain why I wasn't first. Best Big Brother, your quirk is very hard to replicate, Kaken. Zero's quirk is similar to my capture weapons and it can be replicated by how Aizawa-sensei used them. Then with Kirishima's I was thinking of adding armor and making it act like my souls, and I thought about how Kirishima hits his fists together and Hawks thought it was a good idea. And I use Kaminari's in a way since my Eskrima rods are electrified and Hawks said I should electrify the armor, and then I thought about adding fire like Dabi's, and then explosions for Kaken, and then acid for Ashio, and then Hawks felt jealous so I started thinking about his and came up with swords, but then I thought about using a knife like Aizawa-sensei. Baku bitch, if you add in explosions I will forgive you. Best Big Brother, okay Kaken. Ultra Strawberry Dreams. Mido really is out here being the squad big brother. Raccoon, does that make Dabi the brother-in-law? Possum, I don't give a fuck if Mama and Co is here, you're fucking dead. Best Big Brother, and Mac call Mom to make sure they don't kill each other. So, Midoriya, today is your last day. Hawks pretended to wipe a tear, and it means we won't see each other ever again. Izuku paused in his packing and turned to the hero. I thought you planned on stopping by my work now. Well, I do, but I like to be dramatic. I'm also dragging Maruko because she cannot escape the babysitter role. Izuku rolled his eyes and went back to packing, but since it's your last day, let's do something fun. Like what? Do you have any other hero course friends? Maybe we can bother them. Izuku thought back to his friends and grimaced. He was close with Mirio, Tamaki, and Niger, but he had mostly been friends with Mirio, who was interning with Night Eye, who didn't like Izuku. Well, wait, there is Suzuki. She's in class 1B, but we met during some training and we've been friends ever since. Oh, who's she interning with? Let me look. Dude, you look like shit. Eraser Jr. Hey Suzuki. Hawks wanted to do something fun and he suggests you and your hero hang with us. Who are you interning with? Midnight Jr. Hi Izuku. Midnight Jr. I'm interning with Uobami the snake hero. We should totally hang. I'll ask her. Midnight Jr. She said yes and we can go get food. Eraser Jr. Yes. Izuku. Suzuki ran up and tackled Izuku, who laughed. Suzuki. She set him down and frowned. I call you by your first name, call me by mine. Sorry Himari. She rolled her eyes and punched him in the shoulder. Forgiven for now. How's interning going? Great. I've gotten tons of new ideas. Oh, it's like watching our kids have a playdate, Uobami teased, taking selfies with Hawks. I know, right? I feel so proud. The two pro heroes kept laughing while the interns glared. Whatever, any ideas for food? Suzuki laid her arm around his shoulders. Cause me and snakes are feeling chicken now. Hey, Hakwas, don't you eat chicken? Not the point, Uobami. The two ignored the heroes. There's this cafe I like. Let's go there. Suzuki led the group around the city while Izuku began telling Uobami all about his ideas for her quirk. Have you thought about using a snake for each direction before? It would spread your range a lot when it comes to finding people. I have a little bit, but I'll try to push it more. And we're here. Suzuki gestured to the building with a large smile. Izuku turned to the storefront and froze. It was Sunflower Cafe. Let's go in. Hawks dragged Izuku in while Uobami and Suzuki chatted lightly. Hi there, Midoriya. It's good to see you. Mayumi came around the counter and hugged the teen. Are you doing your internship? Why, yes, ma'am. This is Pro Hero Hawks and Uobami, and this is my friend Suzuki. Well, it's lovely to meet you all. You too. I didn't know Midoriya worked here. I did. He talks about it all the time cause he brings his brother here. Suzuki bragged. Then why did we come here? I like drama. Izuku rolled his eyes and tried to trip the girl, but she only jumped over his leg and went to the counter. Now what does Izuku get? The four had been sitting in the cafe for a while now. Uobami and Hawks had been talking for the last hour about teaming up for some small case and then for a commercial, while Izuku and Suzuki had been talking about new support items for each other. I seriously think you should try a whip. Just like Midnight. Yeah, but my hair kinda already does that. So, if you use a weapon, then when someone attacks it won't hurt you. I'll think about it. So Midoriya, got any fun costumer stories? Uomabi asked, leaning across the table and whispering. Not really. Aizawa-sensei sometimes comes in before we close. There's also these girls that come in and I help them with their work sometimes. Boring. Wasn't there that one guy? What one guy? Both heroes asked, looking to Suzuki. Come on, Izuku. You know the one. He sighed and sunk into the chair. Well, we were slow one day and his guy came in. I think he was a little older than me, I don't know. And he ordered his food, but then he didn't leave. He sat at one of the open seats at the bar and we talked for a minute. He seemed nice. He covered his face and he scared me out, but I said no. Why'd you say no? Is it cause you're straight? I might fire you as my intern if you are. Oh no. He said no because he likes someone else. Who? Has he told you about Dabi? Hawks gasped and turned to Izuku. Dead body guy. Really? Who's dead body guy? I was walking home once and he was hurt, so I helped him and he just hasn't really left. He slowly sunk down more and more as Hawks and Uobami awed at him. I can't do this. It's so cute though. Did you know after the sports festival he stayed with Izuku the entire time? Can we not talk about this? His little brother sent me photos of them cuddling on the couch. Suzuki Himari.